Okay, hey everybody. I should be live now. You should be able to see me and hear me. Hopefully you can. You guys can let me know. While people are sort of filtering in, I'll just briefly explain what it is that we're going to be doing today. And yes, as Air Daywan says, get the likes up. Really helps. Seriously, liking the video for YouTube live streams specifically is actually what causes them to be pushed out to more people. So I would super duper appreciate it if you guys did that. If you're tuning in, just a like is all I need. I don't need your money. I don't need anything else from you, but a like is pretty cool. Okay, so everybody can hear me pretty well? Yes? No? If so, also I'm probably gonna need you guys' help here in a second because like I'm gonna be reacting to YouTube videos, which means that like the audio for that is gonna be obviously very all over the place. So yeah, if anybody, the video's like too loud or too quiet when I'm like watching it, you guys can let me know about that too. All right, anyway, so yeah, today I wanted to react to some videos that people made in response to my own video about the loss of the midcore Yu-Gi-Oh player. And you've probably maybe already seen it if you follow MBT, if you follow Farfa, Joshua Schmidt, myself. You've probably already seen like their reactions to it. So I'm not going to spend too much time explaining exactly what it is. But yeah, so sorry, I'm not like really all that good at this live streaming thing. Okay, so this is the video I made. It's called The Loss of the Midcore Yu-Gi-Oh player. And basically, it's all about my discussion of why I think that it sort of seems like Yu-Gi-Oh has stratified itself to where there are a lot of very competitive players who seem to be enjoying Yu-Gi-Oh a lot. These are people who are, they're keeping up with the metagame. They're going to the YCS events. They're traveling, they're testing, they're really grinding, labbing things out, they know their matchups, they know the game, like they're having a good time. And then conversely, there are a lot of players who are sort of, going towards Edison and GOAT formats and having a lot of fun with those. And, they're playing like in these GOAT tournaments, there's Edison things, they're doing draft. There's also like kind of the space of YouTube where a lot of people are doing like, these weekly Master Duel segments, Wheeled Edison, Wheeled GOAT, Master Duel Saga, like all these different things where you can watch your favorite content creators play Master Duel with some sort of a random rule imposed on them. And it's a lot of fun. But amidst all of that, the category of player that I think has been sort of left out to dry is the midcore Yu-Gi-Oh player. And the midcore Yu-Gi-Oh player is basically a player who is they're kind of in the middle. They're not super hardcore. They're not traveling to every YCS, but they're more than casual. They're not a Yu-Gi boomer. They're not asking for Playground Yu-Gi-Oh back. And like they are playing decks that are middle of the road. That could be your tier 2, your tier 3 decks. It could be, things that came out a few years ago, things that came out recently but just don't get a lot of attention. I can, literally in chat right now, you guys can name random like midcore Yu-Gi-Oh decks and we'd be here forever. I think of a person who wants to play Nouvelles and they want to play them like, competently. They want to learn how to play the deck well. They want to tech it out. They go to locals. They maybe gone to a few regionals, but they also, are not trying to be the next YCS champion. They're just trying to do the best that they can with the deck that they play. And what I've noticed is it feels like there's less and less interest in that sector. Gladiator Beast is a great one. Yes. Blackwings is a good one. Cyber Dragons is a great one. Melfi, Dragoonity. Yeah, people know. You guys got to unlock. So basically, this player is not really being catered to because I noticed that when new sets come out, obviously the conversation is going to be about, like, is there a new Molcharmy card? What's the new, like, Dominus card? Like, the staple meta thing that costs $100? Or, like, how does this affect, the strongest decks? Ryzeal, Malice, all of that. But what you won't really hear too many people talking about is, like, when a new support comes out for a deck that, like, is not those, it's not really talked about. There's less content really, it feels like, being made for those, although I could be wrong about that. I know there are a lot of smaller channels that sometimes talk about this stuff. And also, yeah, so that's basically the gist of what kind of the midcore Yu-Gi-Oh player is. I feel like this is a player who's sort of been forsaken a little bit by the content space, by Konami, whatever you want to. There's like a lot of different ways you could view that. And so I made this video about it, and a lot of people seem to have a lot of thoughts on the video. So that's why we're here to react to said video. Or not, I'm not going to react to my own video. I mean, you guys kind of see what it's about. I've explained it a good bit. But I'm going to be reacting to MBT's video about it, Farfa's video about it. Joshua Schmidt made a very long video about it, which is like an hour and a half, basically. So that's like probably the biggest one and probably where we'll start, because I know that his, from what I've heard, was probably the most critical of the points that I raised. And so that's why I think it'll be kind of interesting. And yeah, so the last thing I want to say too before we get started here is that this is not like a kind of dramatic reaction video. I don't really mind if people disagree with me on this, on what the idea of a mid-core player is, whether or not that player is really, in trouble or has been forsaken by Yu-Gi-Oh. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on this. I'm not proclaiming to be right about anything. I'm not the person who runs Yu-Gi-Oh or runs this game. It's really, up to Konami to decide if that's an issue that they want to tackle or address, or if it's like something that we as a community should address. Like, it's not, I don't have to be, right in this situation, if that makes sense. So all the people that I'm going to react to, MBT, Farfa, Josh, even Jesse Cotton, I think he even made a video about this, and others too. So I'm going to try to react to all of these, but I just want to be clear that, like, I don't harbor any ill will to these people. This isn't going to be like a slam takedown, like, this person just doesn't understand and this is why they're stupid and wrong. It's really not, but I am curious what these different people have to say. So, yeah, but that's what it basically is. We're going to just talk about this. A lot of people have asked me to react to it, so that's what I'm doing. Anyway, last little reminder, if you're just tuning into the stream, please leave a thumbs up. It really does help a lot. It spreads it to more people, and I would appreciate that loads. Okay, we're about to hop into the first one, which is Joshua Schmidt's video. You guys can tell me how the audio is on this, because I might have to tweak it some.
It's been a while since we've even reacted to anything or have taken part in any sort of
so how's this sound, first of all, before we
about the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game here. So
how's that sound? Is that like reasonably, is that like way too loud, way too low? Should I change it before we get started? So that way I'm not like, people aren't like, oh my God, I can't hear anything. He's way louder than me. Okay. A little lower. Okay. All right, cool. Because I can hear it pretty much no matter what, so.
I saw a little bit of a discussion over on
So does this sounds pretty good?
Twitter this morning, and people have also suggested it in my Discord, or said they wanted my opinion on it.
Yay,
I
nay?
haven't watched.
This is good? People are saying this is good? Okay, awesome. Just wanted to make sure. I don't want to, start streaming or start, doing this and people are like, yeah. Okay. Someone says a pinch higher. Okay, a pinch higher. I can do a pinch. Something like that.
The video yet, but I've seen bits and pieces of the discussion, and
okay.
I think it is interesting. The video I'm referring to is by APS Amplifier, who they often, or Paul specifically, often brings up interesting points about Yu-Gi-Oh. So,
all right.
It's called The Loss of the Mid-Core Yu-Gi-Oh player, which, just from the name.
Okay, I have a question real quick before we get into this too much more. When people react to these, they literally like watch the whole video, because this is an hour and a half. So like I'm down to like sit here for an hour or whatever and like listen to this and give my points. But like, do people want this at like 1.5 times speed, or like, because I can't really skip around. I don't really know. It sounds like he's gonna say a lot, and I don't know. I'm just asking in advance. I don't want to be BM. People speed it up a little bit. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do like 1.5 speed just to kind of get through here. So
I already have an idea of what we're talking about, but the discussion on Twitter also took a little bit of a different turn as well. So let's just go right in without any speculation and see exactly what we're.
Oh yeah, I did have a
thread
on Twitter about this as well. Hey guys, Paul here. So today I wanted to talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh phenomenon that I've been observing a lot more in the last couple of years. It's something that I also alluded to on Twitter, but I felt like bringing it to a full discussion.
APS drama again. Okay, is this sort of like a meme? Is this a sort of meme that's going on? I feel like Paul never really stirs up drama.
Yeah, he's right. Thank you. I'm glad he said that.
It just brings up Paul's way of doing it. Always feels very valid criticism-esque. which he does make regularly, but I don't feel like it's drama. It's more like, I feel like it's more in the vein of constructive criticism usually.
A video would be a really good
Yeah,
thing.
thanks,
So basically,
Josh. I
it's
appreciate
the
that.
sort
I'd
of,
really try not
loss
to
of the
be
mid-core
dramatic.
Yu-Gi-Oh player. And what I mean by that is this. So competitive Yu-Gi-Oh right now actually feels like it is kind of...
Wow, these chat people are mean.
Like,
Jeez.
people seem to be really enjoying, you know, grinding the competitive YCS scene more now than ever. I see a lot of videos that are, you know, kind of these niche, nitty-gritty, you know, getting into the highly incredible specifics of like combo lines, where to use hand traps, things like that.
Watching
And
this on my
people seem
phone
to
with
be
an
enjoying
AirPod
the
in and
Malice
playing
and
Master
Rise
Duel on my
format.
PS5.
Like, the players that, you know, travel to these
That's
YCS
funny.
events, playtest rigorously. They can afford the best cards, and that's not really an issue for them. They seem to be really enjoying competitive Yu-Gi-Oh right now. And
That's true. I think. I think it's very hard to
Did my camera
argue
go
against
out?
the fact that competitive.
Wait, what happened to my camera? Did my camera disappear? Hold up. Whoa. Sorry. One sec. Okay.
Yu-Gi-Oh is
Yeah, let me see what happened to my camera. I think camera went out? I don't know what that's about. Wait a second. Oh God. Yeah, I'm not at all prepared for this sort of thing, clearly. Huh. Okay, hold up. Let me see. So okay, I have like a backup camera, so I can just use that, but I just didn't know about. Sorry about this. I did not expect any of this to happen, so bear with me for just a second while I fix this whole situation. Okay. Properties. I think this should like be basically what I need. Yeah, because like I planned on using one camera and now it's like not working. So pause for a second. I'll do I will do some work on this. Okay. You guys can just talk amongst yourselves. I don't know. Figure it out while I figure all this out. See, this is the problem. This is, by the way, this is why I never ever want to be a streamer, because this stuff happens to me and I get so stressed out and I'm just like, why? Like, what's going on? I don't know how to work any of this. I prefer to just like record things and not have to deal with anything else. Okay. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. There we go. Good. Cool. Thank goodness. All right. If this goes away, you guys just know I tried my best. And push comes to shove, I'll just react to this stuff without a camera because I'm really, you know, we could technically just do that. You don't really have to see me for this, but yeah. So anyway, yeah. Hopefully. Oh yeah, and also this needs to be. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this is all good. Just wanted to make sure that it was, you know, working out and everything like that. Okay. All right. Anyways, we'll continue. If it goes out again, then you know why. But yeah.
It's doing well right now. Competitive Yu-Gi-Oh is doing well. Numbers are great. And the format also, I'm enjoying it. I do see myself as a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, and I am very much enjoying Ryzeal and Malice format. And,
yeah, cool. He's enjoying competitive Yu-Gi-Oh.
I feel like it's easy to forget, though, that is not the entirety of the Yu-Gi-Oh community, of course. Like, the 2,000 people, the 3,000 people that decide to travel to a YCS event is not, you're not getting the full picture, right, of the Yu-Gi-Oh community that way. But I mean, you do get a fair share, the competitive.
Yeah, very
players.
true.
And I suppose that maybe that's what we're getting to here, is that like that part of Yu-Gi-Oh is doing great, but maybe he's worried about other parts of the game.
This is good. I want to be
He's
clear that I
right.
think that this is a good thing. They're having fun with competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. On the other end, you've also got a lot of people who recently have been embracing older formats. Things like GOAT and Edison format come to mind. Some people also like to play Toss or Hat format as well. But basically these older snapshot formats. And you see it a lot, especially in content creation now. A lot more people are doing, some sort of a spin the wheel, wheeled GOAT, wheeled Edison. It's kind of expanded to include things like cubes and draft as well. And again, that's really cool. Getting to sort of take a dive back into these nostalgic old Yu-Gi-Oh times is great.
Thank you for the super chat. Hello, boys.
Casual and nostalgic fans there.
Appreciate
so
that.
if you're a content creator, that's great. We did our Retro Rivals series with the Retro Pack, and that was a lot of fun. And you see a lot of content from that end of the spectrum as well. But what it feels like there isn't a lot of is a lot of interest and sort of almost maybe support for the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player, I call it. What is the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player exactly? Well, basically, this is this player who, they've played Yu-Gi-Oh for a really long time. They play at locals most weeks. They've been to a few regionals, and they do want to win, but they also kind of want to win with their favorites. They get enthusiastic or excited about anime decks, or just some of their favorite decks getting new support. And even if their favorite deck isn't like super duper YCS level viable, they still want to do the best they can with it. And they want to find content about that. They want to find places to play those decks. And what I'm basically finding is happening is that these players have been sort of neglected a little bit and are now migrating to other card games or just quitting Yu-Gi-Oh in some cases.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the argument, because I mean, yeah, that's definitely a thing that exists, right? Like there is, so basically what we're talking about is there's people that enjoy grinding Yu-Gi-Oh at a high competitive level, which are the people that have they don't have an issue with or are fortunate enough to be able to afford the expensive cards, and so they are taking part in the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh space, and they're not trying to play a deck because they just like it. They're trying to play a deck because they're trying to win. They're trying to travel to big tournaments and so on and so forth, which is a very that's something that is enjoyable for them to do, and they are enjoying it, and there's enough of them so that we still have a lot of very big tournaments out there. So that kind of space is fine. And then we've also got what I think we've referred to it as like a more casual environment for Yu-Gi-Oh to play in, where you don't really care what the current meta decks are or how expensive Voltron Fuvalos is or whatever, right? You're just trying to have fun by playing your favorite Time Wizard format, or you're watching content creators do draft and all that kind of stuff, which I also agree with. There's a lot of fun to be had in Yu-Gi-Oh outside of just the competitive space, which is something that I've been dealing with that as well in terms of content creation, because I don't only enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh in the competitive sense. I also enjoy a lot of these other things, which is it's been difficult for me to explore different directions in content creation, because it feels like you're always you're building up a community or a viewership for one thing. It feels hard to switch sometimes. Like, for example, we played Edison on stream last week, which I thought was really fun, and I had a blast, but that stream did have a couple hundred viewers less than what I usually have, which is understandable, because normally people come here to watch, competitive Master Duel or whatever, right? Which is fine, but that space definitely exists, right? And there's a lot of fun to be had with Yu-Gi-Oh in different ways. What I'm not getting just yet is what the mid-core, who exactly is mid-core, and why are they having a problem? Is the argument that it's, because I'm sure there's always been people like this, right? There's always been people who have pet decks or favorite archetypes, and they're trying to make them work, and they don't want to or don't have the finances to afford a new meta deck every other month or every other set, which is completely fair enough. Those are we're losing those right now, I guess, is the argument. I do think there's a point to be made. I mean, I could see it happening. I don't have the numbers behind it, but I do think for those, I thought that there was going to be, or that there is going to be, more of a emphasis on the financial aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what I thought when I
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to pause this for a second to talk a little bit about... So I think Josh basically understands the gist of what I'm getting at. He seems like he is aware of, there are competitive players, there are very casual players. It seems like he's focusing a little bit on the monetary aspect of it and why a player would quit for that reason, which I think, get into later on in this video. I hardly remember what I said in this thing. It was 2 weeks ago. But... yeah, so he's kind of on the right track. You guys can't see it, although his chat's in this video as well. These people in the chat, I really noticed, you can tell a lot about people based on kind of just the audience that watches them. So for instance, actually, let me see if I can move this. Hopefully my camera will still cooperate with us. We will see. But whatever, I'm not going to worry about it. But the point is, yeah, a lot of people in his chat, I notice, are very, a lot of the people for Josh's chat are much more competitive minded. So, I'll sort of see people who are Paul doesn't really know what he's talking about, or these mid-core players suck anyway, that's why they're not competitive players. And it's I think that might be missing the point. But so far, I think Josh has, has the gist of what I'm saying.
I read the title, and I'm going to continue watching in a second. I just want to before I forget what I was going to say. I think there's an argument to be made that like if you were very casual about Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't really have an issue with Yu-Gi-Oh being expensive, right? Because like if you're just trying to play your favorite retro format, or you're trying to draft with friends or whatever, right? You don't have to care how expensive a meta deck is and how expensive it is to keep up with the game. On the other hand, if you're super deep into Yu-Gi-Oh, like you're a hardcore Yu-Gi-Oh player, hardcore competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, you're like so invested into the game that you probably also don't have an issue with investing, because I mean most hobbies cost money. And if
okay, actually I've got a question, because like I'd wonder, is there okay, I need to watch the entire video. He misses the point brutally. Is there, okay, if somebody's watched this video, can you give me a timestamp where he like kind of gives the majority of his thoughts? I'm not trying to be like rude about it or anything, but like it's more like this is, if you guys want me to sit here and watch this like hour-and-a-half video, I will. But I know that like Far-Fetched MBTs are much shorter videos, so like I can, you know, those I can sort of watch more. But I like, if somebody kind of knows, like, is it like kind of the second half of the video where he talks about it? He finished the video like halfway through and goes on a really long tangent. Okay, cool. Oh, whoa, there's like a graph here? Oh goodness. Like I feel like it'd be like rude for me to just like skip this, but I just really like I just want to find out where we can kind of like the stuff that we can discuss, because like just him watching me is, I mean, that's what I'm technically doing, but like, you know, I want to talk more about like his opinions and points as opposed to go to the graph. Okay. All right, cool. I'll just go to where this is and we'll kind of watch from here. Whoa. Oh, okay. This is crazy.
Where Konami refuses to make and support an alternative format to the main game using the cards from the main game. On the subject of card design, of cards not being able to be used, I think this is a symptom of Konami over-tuning the decks they want to sell. Most of the meta decks of recent take all or most of the slices of the balanced design pie. Sam's Ubel lists from his YCS win actually has all 6 elements. I think they can still make meta decks, but just not give them everything. So this is a chart that I don't know if they made it or if it's, I haven't seen it before. Hand trap resilience, consistency, power, non-engine resistance, non-engine space, grind game. Example, Salamangreat has 4 out of 6 with non-engine space, grind game, hand trap resilience, consistency, but lacks power and non-engine resistance. Exo Sister, 3 out of 6 with non-engine space, grind game, hand trap resilience, but lacked the others. Brickus and Avalon has 4 out of 6 with hand trap resilience, consistency, power, non-engine resistance. Full Power Cash had 4 out of 6 power, consistency. This one I might get black for, but the deck had 10 1-card starters and had more available, but chose not to play for non-engine room. Grind game lacked. An example of a deck that wasn't okay was Tier, which had 5 out of 6 with the most hand trap resilience, grind game, power, consistency of every format before. It had everything but non-engine space.
Dark
Ryzio also has 5 out of 6.
I'm sorry, I just read this comment in the chat from Dark Aura Lord. Honestly, don't even listen to his points. Just fast forward to the end, call Josh an idiot, and tell him the ball is in his court. No, I'm not gonna do that. I want to, it's just, this video is long. Like, I want to talk about what he's got. I suppose that this had timestamps. That's all.
With consistency, power, non-engine space, grind game, hand trap resilience. Okay, we're walking down this road of, okay, fair enough. Card design has gone in a direction. I don't like this system that we're using here, but we'll get into that. The points are still the points they make in text form are still valid, is the thing. This system of evaluating a deck has significant flaws and I don't think should really be used, because for a start, these things this makes it seem like a deck either has this or it doesn't, which is something that people, when they quickly refer to a deck, they often do this sort of thing. But in reality, this isn't just not like these things. Consistency is not a 1 or 0 switch. There's no like.
No, don't worry, Dark
like,
Lord. I loved your
now
comment.
This deck's consistent, and then you go
funny.
1 card below, and now it's not consistent anymore. All of these things are. It's more like a spectrum. Every single.
Okay, so sorry, I just want to hear what he has to say. Okay, this looks like this might be the point that we're getting at. Like we're back on this video. We'll just watch from here.
Like what's the? I'm banning all hand traps. What's the suggestion? Because you're making a very, very vague suggestion. So you want to have a format where 6 Samurai are arbitrary example, right? 6 Samurai is supposed to be the best deck in your format, or at least meta competitive, like competitively viable, right? But you want the old cards to be legal so you can play with your favorites, and you also want the new cards to be legal. How does that work?
Was he talking about what I said on Twitter?
If the old 6 Samurai cards are legal and the new 6 Samurai cards are legal, why are all the other cards not legal that are in Modern? And who decides that your 6 Samurai support is in there, but the Ubel Legacy support is not in there, because then your 6 Samurai deck doesn't compete with Ubel either? Does domain format achieve that? You tested it? I think the only way to achieve that is to find like-minded people and just be like, yeah, let's play our pet decks. Like there's just like you're gonna
I'm
have to
so
do
bad at
some
this.
work
I'm
yourself, I
terrible
guess, in
at
that
these
sense.
reaction things. I don't see how
because-
people do this.
The Six Samurai deck, I'm just using that as an example because they used it. But like, you're not happy that you have to do too much work to win locals with, because it's not good enough in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. Sure, all right. But you are also not willing to just play with friends. Just like saying like, hey, I want to play Six Samurai, you play your Battling Boxers or whatever, and then we're gonna have good games. I have problems wrapping my head around the concept, because at the end of the day, that should probably just be a community-driven thing. That's Heart of the Underdog. Yeah, and so what exactly is Heart of the Underdog? Heart of the Underdog is just a format where they ban some meta decks, right? In theory, yeah. I don't know. I do think a fair argument is that Yu-Gi-Oh has. I think we can all. I think let's try to bring this to a conclusion that hopefully most of us can agree on. All right, like.
Okay, we're at a
whether
conclusion.
That's a
Good.
problem
This
for
is what
modern
I
Yu-Gi-Oh
need.
or not aside. I think we can all agree that not every archetype is created equal. All right, some are more expensive than others. Some are more meta viable than others. All right, that is definitely true for Yu-Gi-Oh. And for some people, that creates certain frustrations, whether it is the barrier of entry in order to play or compete, or because they like a certain archetype and it's just not as good as other archetypes. Fine, that creates frustration, which is fair enough. The question at that point is, what would the solution be? Because alternative formats could do that depending on what exactly the format would be. And retro formats, which is they have been adding at least one alternative way to play Yu-Gi-Oh recently, even with official like tournaments and stuff, and that's Time Wizard. The problem with Time Wizard is, or like the criticism with Time Wizard here, is that you cannot play those new cards in Time Wizard. So basically, all of this amounts to, we're asking for another alternative format where you can play with the new cards, but it's got like a different sort of power scaling to it. So like the tiers are like a little like either flipped, or some is like taken out at the top, so that you can play your tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, whatever it is, kind of decks in those sort of formats more. And I think to that I say, like, I can get behind it, because I personally do feel like there is a lot of ways to enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh, and I do think in some ways it's even criminal that like Yu-Gi-Oh is only, quote unquote, only being played and enjoyed in two different ways, either competitive, like just advanced Yu-Gi-Oh format, or Time Wizard. I do think having more ways to play the game would just be a net positive, especially if it makes people more interested in decks like Six Samurais, because I mean, you know, it's definitely true. You pull these cards in modern booster packs, you're like, what am I going to do with that? Nothing. You know, fair point. That is true.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I was saying.
As a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, you're asking yourself, what am I supposed to do with this? And as a Time Wizard fan or whatever, you're also asking yourself, what am I supposed to do with this? So that point I get behind. These cards do feel, quote unquote, I don't want to call them useless, but you do have to put in a lot of work, and it's still gonna be an uphill battle to play these cards. Right? I do get that. I do understand that. I just, to me, it doesn't feel like that much of a problem, but I am also not really affected by it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think for most, for these kind of things, it does probably just take some community effort to solve. If that's something that so many people are interested in, it is something that also it would work, you know? And I mean, I guess in one instance, it has even worked to the point where it eventually turned into an official format. Isn't that what happened with like Commander and Magic? Wasn't that just like a community-driven format that people just invented and went like, hey, this is a fun way to play Magic? And then people just played that, and it turned into an official format that they now even support at a competitive scale. And that also happened with Time Wizard, right? Like Time Wizard was not something that, like, before you say, hey, yeah, but Konami would never do this. No, they did. They did do that with Time Wizard. Time Wizard did not start because Konami said like, hey, now go play GOAT format. The people in the community started playing GOAT format. They sat down with their friends or went to locals, brought a GOAT format.
All right, I'm getting to the meat of this.
People saw that, and now there's official Time Wizard formats, right? It is a development that's happening. What I don't really understand is the exact, like, I guess I do understand the points now that we've talked about it for like an hour or something. If they really support it, let's be honest, there's no product directly for it. There's like hundreds of people attending official Time Wizard tournaments. Of course they're supporting it. They're dedicating venue space, judges, and all that kind of stuff to Time Wizard. Yes, it could be more, but of course they're like supporting it. There's a nostalgia pool in the recent rarity collections. There's prize pools, there's judges, there's venue space. Like, yeah, it could be better, and it's getting better. It's a development. It's just not gone from like 0 to infinite in the span of like a month or something. But like, of course they're supporting Time Wizard. Like, what's your argument? They just want the Time Wizard YCS. I want it too. I would love a Time Wizard YCS. But
well,
to say that Time Wizard is not supported, it's just like you're losing me with that argument. Like, there's a lot, like, I feel like people are always way too extreme and way too judgmental with their with these sort of things. Like, this sort of stuff takes time, and it also takes a lot of community effort in these sort of instances where they're look, Yu-Gi-Oh is doing fine at a competitive level, right? Like, they're making Yu-Gi-Oh people, it's received well overwhelmingly, right? There's 2,000 plus people come into every single European YCS. YCS Birmingham is sold out like a month in advance, or even longer. I don't know how long it's been sold out for, but I think it is sold out, and it's doing well, right? And if people want other ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh, it is something that you need to make Konami see the demand for. It's not something they're just going to do out of nowhere when their main product is just doing fine.
Okay, all right. I think I have a pretty good idea of what Josh has to say about this, and I do agree with a lot of you guys in the comments, and I really want you guys to, like, feel free to weigh in on this here. I understand where he's coming from with this stuff. I think what Josh is maybe misunderstanding is, like, you know what? Actually, I've got cards I can use as an example. Hold up, and this will help. One sec. I just opened some Supreme Darkness, so it'll be perfect. Okay, so first of all, thanks to everybody who's been commenting, like, they're happy that I made this discussion, because I'm glad that a lot of different people are approaching this. I don't, like I said at the beginning, I don't want this to kind of come across as like me being, like, angry that people maybe disagree with me or misunderstood me or whatever. Anyway, so these are some cards that I opened recently from Supreme Darkness. And the point that I'm going to make here is not that, so, what is this card? I don't know if you guys can see this or if it's in focus. This is one of these, like, new Arcana Force cards. Arcana Force got a lot of support in this new set. Awesome, fun, very cool. However, let me see if this might help with focusing. Okay, yeah. However, here's the problem with a card like this. This is really cool and really exciting, and if you like Arcana Force, this is neat. But where would you play the Arcana Force deck to really, like, enjoy yourself? It's not a YCS viable deck. I think most of us know that. But also, you can't play this in GOAT and Edison. The point that I think I maybe didn't do a great enough job in my original video of saying was that I feel like if a person wants to play Arcana Force with the new support cards, where would they really play it? At the top end, it's not viable. And also in the kind of retro space where it's like, GOAT and Edison formats, you cannot play these new Arcana Force cards. That's kind of why I made the example of Six Samurai, but it really applies to many different things, is just this whole idea of, like, if I want to play Six Samurai, I think, like Josh said somewhere in this video, and I'm not sure if maybe he's misunderstanding my words a bit, that, like, I'm suggesting that you should be able to play new Six Samurai cards in Edison format. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that a failing of Edison format, and it's a great format, but, like, a small failing, or maybe not even failing is the right word, a limitation of Edison is that it is locked in time. So if one of your favorite decks is good in Edison, like, if you like Black Wings, some of the hero versions of heroes at the time, Gladiator Beasts, Lightsworn decks that were viable at the time, those decks are there, but you can't play Nouvelles. So say that you like Nouvelles, or you like Sioux ships, or, you like Melfi, and you think that's a really cool kind of thing. You cannot really, like, play those in Edison. So even though Edison is a better paced, maybe, version of Yu-Gi-Oh for some of the more casual crowd, you can't use the new Six Sam cards for a Six Samurai deck in Edison. They're just, like, not legally, it's not allowed to be used. And you also can't use an entirely new archetype like your, Sioux ships, like I said, like, or a deck like that. And, you guys can name plenty of these decks. So yeah, so like Dark Warlord says here, I'm trying to, like, show that comment because I didn't want it to be hidden. But yeah, like Dark Warlord says, so you have to just try and play modern Six Samurai into freaking Ryziel. And that's kind of the thing, right? Like, a lot of these modern decks aren't really going to be able to stand much of a chance against Ryziel or Malice, but where are those decks meant to sort of be played instead? And that's why I so badly want Konami to embrace Heart of the Underdog. The thing is, what I don't like about Heart of the Underdog is that Heart of the Underdog is a format that Konami talks about, but they do not formally like make the ban lists for it. So the premise of Heart of the Underdog is that, you know, meta decks are kind of banned, but even Josh mentions this in his video, there's not actually like a set rule set for like Heart of the Underdog. It's decided by your local card shop. And so like my card shop, let's say, we have 2 card shops. Paul's card shop, and then you who's watching this is your card shop. We have different scenes, different people, kind of a different understanding of what exactly the problematic things in the metagame are. So my shop says, okay, we're going to play Heart of the Underdog this week, and at my locals, you cannot play any Ryziel card, you can't play any Malice card, you can't play any Fiendsmith card, let's say. And maybe we'll throw in Azamina too. So that's what you can't play at my locals version of this. And then there's maybe some individual cards that like we toss in as well, maybe some extra floodgates or a dimension shifter or something like that. But at your card shop, people have also deemed Yubel and Snake Eye and even Tenpai, despite their ban list nerfs, to also still be too good. I'm not saying that's the right or wrong way to approach it, but my locals allows Yubel, your locals doesn't allow Yubel. Like your local said, no Phantom of Yubel, no Nightmare Throne. Like you cannot play any of the new Yubel stuff, or like, you can't play the Yubel deck. Mine says I could. So now, even though we're both playing something that's under the label of Heart of the Underdog, the problem is that mine's different than yours, so we can't really compare our results. We can't both really anticipate like how it's meant to be played, because if I play Heart of the Underdog at my area, and then I want to travel an hour down the road to the other card shop where they're trying to do it too, but they have a different set of cards that are banned and limited and stuff, then it's incongruent, and that just doesn't really work. You know what I mean? So that's why I think that it would be good for Konami to embrace Heart of the Underdog and like take the reins with it. They need to be the ones to say, okay, here's exactly what's allowed, and here's what isn't allowed. And I know that the reason why they don't want to do that is because to do so would mean sort of admitting that cards are broken, and that's kind of a golden rule Konami does not break. So, for instance, like Konami doesn't really, if Konami says, okay, here's Heart of the Underdog format, no Malice, no Ryziel, no Fiendsmith allowed, then that's them just saying that we know that Malice, Ryziel, and Fiendsmith are way too good. And that might not sound like a big deal to you listening, but like that actually means that they are admitting that cards are kind of designed to be much better and stronger than other cards. And whether or not that's true, as a company, they just can't really like say or suggest it. So yeah. Anyway, let's finish up Josh's video though, and then we will get on to Farfa's video where I think he reacts to this. I know his video is a little bit shorter, so it'll be easier to maybe digest.
Make Smogon, but for Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, here's the thing. I do think there's more ways to enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh, and I do wish they would support it more, and we could probably hold even more players if they did. Does Josh even know Smogon? No, I know what Smogon is. I know how it works. I do. I'm just not entirely sure what to really make of this discussion, other than people wish that every single Yu-Gi-Oh card printed was useful in some sort of context. So that just in case anyone likes a certain archetype or a certain card that was printed, they have a way to play that card. Which I think is, in a way, understandable, in another way, a little unrealistic. Not 100%, but more than currently, you'll oftentimes get an entire set where like 1 or maybe 2
cards. Oh, thank you. Someone gifted memberships.
I mean, that is,
Thanks, no, Lux.
No, that's not true. If there are sets where not a lot of new additions are being made to the game, except for a couple of cards, but those are usually reprint sets, which are they do have other purposes of just adding new relevant cards to it. There's almost, I don't think you can name a set right now that outright had just 1 or 2 useful cards and nothing else in there was good. Wasn't Devo kind of like that? Look, I mean, yes, there's bad Yu-Gi-Oh sets out there. There's bad Yu-Gi-Oh sets. That is not the argument I made. But 1 or 2 cards is a stretch. Legends of the Deep with just Forbidden Droplet. That is probably the closest to it. Also, the Legendary Duelist with Baron the Fleur. But you know what? They've gotten the feedback on that. They've gotten the memo, right? The Legendary Duelist sets were bad. I agree with you there. but that is something that's also changed. Like the side sets have improved.
Okay, yeah, I'm not really. So the main point I want to make about the whole like sets and products things here is that by having Heart of the Underdog or some similar format where these new but not meta cards can be played and enjoyed, is that it would add value to opening those sets. So for instance, same example that I made earlier. I opened this pack and got some Speedroid cards. Got the Speedroid card. There's a few of those in here. There's some Materiactor cards in this new set, Supreme Darkness. There are also some cool new zombie cards in this set as well. Zombies. Cool. Awesome. More Six Samurai support. They get a neat little trap. I don't know what else is in there. I think there's like one or two other things. And like the Flame Coating Metalmorph card. Sorry if these are out of focus, but the point is these new cards are cool. I do not want to suggest that these cards are like outright bad. They're very interesting cards, but they are seen as kind of garbage by many people because like they can't really be, you know, considered YCS viable or like super tournament viable. And so it can kind of turn into this problem where opening product feels unfulfilling when so much of this, you know, you open a box and this whole stack of bulk, this isn't even like the full amount of bulk you'll get from a box, but like, you know, this whole stack of bulk is just that. It's just bulk. It's something that you can't really do anything with because there's not really a format to play it in. There's not really people who are interested in, you know, trading for it or, you know, picking it up or playing it. Not enough anyway for it to feel worthwhile to open it and like trade for it and all that stuff. So I think that having a proper sort of like mid-level format would mean that decks like Materiactor could perhaps be more viable in a format like that. And now these Materiactor cards in these products feel like they have more of a purpose because there's like a realistic place where they can be comfortably played is the idea. Now, we will probably end up later on in this getting into some of the other issues that arise with like the whole idea of a mid-core Heart of the Underdog format, because don't get me wrong, it isn't perfect. Like it's not a perfect solution to anything. So we'll get there, but yeah, let's keep watching.
The Baron set had Lyrilusk, which became a meta deck at the time. Yeah, I think people just like to exaggerate a lot to get their points through, but I don't think it's a great way of arguing. Like I think if like even for this it's just exaggerated, right? Like you can play Six Samurai. I don't know. I'm struggling to find more in this discussion other than it just feels like we are warming up some old points that are still relevant and fair enough, but like, for example, Farfar's response just boiled down to Yu-Gi-Oh! Expensive, which, yes, expensive game, true, but not really what we're talking about right now. And fillers. I would have lost to 6 Sam at a regional with Fire King Snake Eye if they didn't misplay. Yeah, see, but they wanted to win even if they're misplaying, because that's what Farfa said. Farfa says he doesn't want to work for winning against the meta decks. So the argument is they should have won with a cheaper, worse deck while playing worse at you than you. That's what should have happened. That's not what he's trying to say. I know that's not what he's trying to say. I'm joking. We're basically done. Master Duel is great for all these decks. Master Duel is great for all these decks, and especially Master Duel is finding ways to get people to play some of these decks, not all of them, in like events, for example. There's definitely been events where decks were useful that weren't like meta relevant in other contexts because they just make like custom ban lists and stuff like that for events. But the argument is it would also be nice to have that used for physical cards, right? Like because you're not using physical cards for any of that. The price is a good argument. OCG doesn't have all these complaints because people can easily change decks and experiencing the game because it's cheaper. I feel like you especially have not made many good points and just yapped a whole lot today. Like the OCG has its very own set of complaints and its very own set of problems, and specifically in regards to rogue decks, like the price is like, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is expensive. How often do you want to repeat it? Is it not possible that like people still enjoy the game? He's not completely wrong though. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying Yu-Gi-Oh isn't expensive, but I'm saying there's more to the game than just Huvalos is $70. This game is dead to me. Don't ever talk to me about it again. Josh doesn't have a 9 to 5. His job allows him to get better at Yu-Gi-Oh naturally. He doesn't get it. Oh yeah, it's not like I played Yu-Gi-Oh for like 20 years before I became a streamer. The chatting has been crazy today. The thing is, it's a controversial topic. On the one hand, I find it hard to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh card prices. Like that entire discussion is something that I mean, I'm not really avoiding it, but I have a hard time talking about it because I'm not in everyone's shoes. I don't experience it the same way that other people experience it. And I feel kind of bad just ignoring it and just saying like, hey, can't we just enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh ignoring the price? Because the price is a big deal for a lot of people, and I understand that, and it's completely fair enough to not want to spend the money on Moltrami Fuvalos. At the same time, I do not like the fact that like some people look at Yu-Gi-Oh just through that lens and nothing else. The way I look at Yu-Gi-Oh is just, I look at it through the lens of someone who enjoys the game, and whenever I talk about certain cards or certain aspects of the game, there's always just so much negativity based on just the card price, which is like, on the one hand, a fair argument. On the other hand, it doesn't mean Moltrami Fuvalos is terrible for Yu-Gi-Oh because it costs $70, right? And that's tough. It's a tough space to be in that I don't really know exactly how to handle yet. Because when I make a video or when I have a discussion about like
I've got so much to
Ultimate
say.
Engine
This is
being
fun to watch.
play with, or good for the game because it's very grindy and interactive, or Moltrami Fuvalos having positive impact on Yu-Gi-Oh because it like slows down decks and so on and so forth, 80%, or I mean it's probably exaggerated, but it feels like 70 to 80% of the comment section is just going to be like, yeah, maybe you're crazy for calling Fiendsmith a cool card. That thing is $50. Or I can't believe you're calling Fuvalos healthy for Yu-Gi-Oh when it's $100 at the release. You know what I mean? It's rough for me because they're not wrong. I wish it was more accessible. And believe me when I say I would Polestar, I'm not talking to you like right now. You can stop responding. You're just throwing me off. All right, like I'm talking to everyone right now. There's 2,000 people right now. It's not about you. All right. I'm not gonna bring up your chat logs because I don't care. I lost my train of thought. I don't know, where was I? Oh God, Farfa is here. We should probably move on. You were talking about Fuvalos and engraver pricing. Yeah, believe me when I say, in an ideal world, I would love for everyone to have access to all the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, right? I would love.
Okay, so he's talking more about like card prices now, which is a little bit beyond exactly my discussion, but I can God, where do I start with this? Yeah, so I think that Josh's perspective on this is probably just skewed by the fact that he is a lot more competitive. And so I think that, you know, he's very accomplished. He's very good at Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think for him, maybe the, as he kind of brought up, the idea of a card being too expensive is not a particularly big issue for him because, you know, like he's obviously got access to all of these cards. So like he'll get the cards he needs for a regional or, you know, whatever. That's not, or, you know, for a YCS. So that's not like really, that's not an issue for him. But I also think that maybe his perspective is somewhat that he could, what do you guys think, actually? Like, I'm not, I think that the card price problem is, it's related. It's related to the whole mid-core concept. This is maybe speaking abstractly, so I'm not, you know, I haven't thought this through 100%, but I feel like if sets were not so top-heavy feeling, I think that perhaps card prices wouldn't be such a big, like, okay, when people view Moltrami Fuvalos or like, you know, Fiendsmith Engraver as the chase cards and also sometimes the only cards worth getting in a set, then it sort of follows that the commons are worth like hay pennies, and that makes the expensive cards more expensive. If there was more balance to sets where you felt like you could play some of these common cards, I think that the value of everything would probably be a little bit more like, it might balance out better. Like, you know, it might feel like, okay, I don't need to get like Engraver because I'm only a Heart of the Underdog player and Engraver is not allowed in that format. So now it's, you know, $80 price tag or whatever does not affect me as much. And like, so that could be like a sort of solution that's provided by like the existence of a Heart of the Underdog format. But really, I don't think it's the pricing that's like my big concern. It's more like giving use to the cards that are not super expensive. And yeah. All right, let's finish this up.
For everyone to be able
to move on to the
have
next.
Engravers and Fuvaloses. I don't want to win against anyone because they don't have access to the best cards. It's not a good feeling. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh should be accessible to as many people as possible because I love this hobby and I wish as many people as possible could play it. Unfortunately, that is not a reality that we live in, and it's not something that I personally can change other than, and this sort of discussion feels like something we're warming up since literally 2008. You know, like that is a thing that's, Yu-Gi-Oh has been like this forever, and once again, that's not a defense at all. But it's just what I'm saying is this discussion is very old to me. It feels very warmed up every time. That's not to say that people shouldn't bring up valid criticism over and over and over again until it eventually changes. But for me personally, it feels like, as someone who's been around for so long, it just feels tiring. to talk about a new Yu-Gi-Oh card, and the only thing that people see, they're almost blinded by it, is that Yu-Gi-Oh is expensive. Which is not wrong, but is also not helpful, right? It doesn't add to any sort of discussion about the card game itself, the one that I'm interested in, right? Like the things I'm interested with Yu-Gi-Oh is not like how expensive are these cards. The thing that I like is that like how these cards interact. You know what I mean? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, Josh is in a fortunate position where, like I said, he is able to. Wow, Farfa's comment here is actually pretty spot on. Unironically, my view of this discussion is that there's too many cards in a short space of time, so mid decks never really get a chance to have a chance or thrive. Very few events also makes people only play the safe and best decks and never experiment. Yeah, I think Farfa's got a pretty good point here. But yeah, what I was gonna say about Josh is that like it is difficult to divorce the topic of card price from just card design and playability. Like they're two separate but like very much connected things. And Josh would rather, it sounds like, by his admission, he would rather really focus on the card design aspects and less about the price. Whereas a lot of people in his chat, at least, are, they are sort of stressing that, like, well, they can't afford the cards. So if they can't afford them, they don't get to participate in that design and like gameplay element at all. And it seems like that's kind of where a rift has formed between the two people watching. There's something kind of ironic about all of this, like when we really zoom out, and we're gonna be doing like a bunch of these reactions, so we're not even close to done here. But there's like some irony, and I'm a part of it, and everybody's a part of it, of like we all are, like in his discussion, he's like, I think that he's kind of saying that he thinks that this is a tired discussion and one that he's sort of heard enough of, or he just doesn't feel like it goes anywhere or whatever. People have been talking about it for a long time. But I mean, like, he is part of that too, right? Like we're all sort of in this zoo together. So if an issue exists and people are, expressing their opinions on it, I don't know. It's like a weird little, like, just, we're all like, ants on a giant rock type of thing in the middle of the universe. Like it's weird. Anyway, okay, let's finish this. I'm getting off topic.
Ironically, my view of this discussion, there's too many cards in a short space of time, so mid decks never really get a chance to thrive. Very few events also make people only play the safe or best decks and never experiment. The release schedule, I do sometimes wish was a little bit slower.
I agree.
I can get behind that. Like I do think sometimes we could just have longer formats or release cards in, like, maybe these sets don't have to have 100 cards or something like that.
I agree with that.
Have the game being slower would also help some people keep up with it if you're not as invested and you are not like super, like, I guess also mid-core, right? Like you're not a hardcore Yu-Gi-Oh player that keeps up. Like new cards are being printed, you're going to be like looking at the set in advance and being up to date with every single new card that comes out, right?
Yes,
kind of what I'm doing on stream as well, right? But like also just like if you're taking a break for a couple of months, it's not like 4 sets have come out. Rather just maybe 1. But yeah, when you can't play for 6 months, it's super hard to get back into the game. Yeah.
It's kind of, there's some real irony in the fact that like he is getting around to, I think, a lot of my points towards the end of this video. Is like that is what the mid-core player is this player who does not keep up so obsessively and like buy absolutely everything from every new set. Like they don't have 3 Fuwalos and 3 like Impulse and just whatever. On like week 1, they sometimes take breaks. They don't necessarily spend as much. They want their more fun deck to be playable for longer than, a day type of thing. And that kind of is a big part of what defines mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh! So.
Yeah, that is, I mean, I've never tried that. The only thing I can speak of is when I took a break during the pandemic. It did take a while to get back in, even for someone who's been playing for a very, very long time. Will this be a topic in the podcast? For this Friday, we had a different topic planned, and we even have a guest for this Friday, so I don't think it's going to be for this week. But this went on for way longer than I wanted it to go, to be honest. I feel like we've lost our train of thought and just ended up, and this is what annoys me sometimes. It's not that this price discussion of Yu-Gi-Oh is just like not necessary and the game isn't expensive. It's just every single discussion about Yu-Gi-Oh will eventually just turn into a Yu-Gi-Oh price discussion. No matter what you do, whether you talk about Mold Charmies, whether you talk about the mechanics of the Fiendsmith engine, the viability of legacy support, the existence of alternate Yu-Gi-Oh formats, Time Wizard, no matter what you talk about, it always turns into a Yu-Gi-Oh expensive discussion. And that is both simultaneously fair enough and annoying, I think, is how I feel about that. Like,
yeah, so I think Josh seems annoyed that so many people talk about pricing in Yu-Gi-Oh, but like there's a reason people are talking about the price. Does that make sense? Like, so he's kind of sounds like, yeah, I'm tired of people yapping for like years and years and years about this price stuff. I want to talk about other things, but like people are always talking about the price. But I think that that's kind of a, almost, does anybody know about the phrase, the medium is the message sort of thing? This feels somewhat similar to it. It's like, if people like, okay, I want people to watch all my videos and get them all to 1 million views. It'd be great if you guys did that. But let's say all my videos sound awful. Like the audio is always bad, which does happen sometimes. We're kind of working on some audio things on that end. But like, and people will leave comments, and let's say like people leave like hundreds of comments on all my videos, and they're like, please fix your microphone. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever, but I don't care. Watch my videos. It's kind of like that, where that's the most weird content-pilled example I think I've ever given for a discussion like this, but it's what came to my head. It's kind of like, hey guys, I want to just talk about how interesting Mulcharmi Fualos is, or the card design, aspects of Dominus Impulse, but please don't talk about the price of it. But the price kind of dictates whether or not players can even engage in the use of these cards. That's where I know we've already gotten like really off topic here, I guess, but it's yeah. Well, please fix your microphone. Yeah, like that's where it kind of gets difficult, is because it's like players I think want to enjoy these cards, but when they can't afford them, they can't afford them. It's a separate discussion that I have a lot of thoughts on, is like, I think that reprints need to be happening faster. I think mixed rarity would be a good solution for things. I'm going to try not to get too much into that, but like people in his chat even are saying like, it is expensive. Like you just can't divorce the price from the issue. It's like, people can't get these cards. My original discussion had less to do with price and more to do with, the lack of the ability to play a Nouvelle deck anywhere meaningfully. But I think like now that we've gotten into talking about price, it makes me want to make an entire video on it. Like it's just, it is what it is. Like if people can't afford these cards, they're not going to be happy about it. So anyway, overall, I think that Josh's video is coming from somebody who is the place that he occupies in Yu-Gi-Oh! And his relationship with it maybe make it harder for him to resonate with some parts of the discussion. I also think that there's some parts that I probably did not do the best job of like explaining or defining. But I think like for him, card price just isn't a factor. He will get these cards, he will compete, and he's more interested in competing. Also, I think that for him, he does not have to really care if Materia Actors are a good or a bad deck, if there's a place to play them or not, because he will not be the player who is trying to, really like win a YCS with them. Not to say that, Josh doesn't experiment with a lot of different decks. I've seen that he does that, especially in Master Duel. But more like it's not really his priority. Like for him, this gets to sort of be an optional thing. He can mess around with a lot of different decks on stream one day. But for the average player, I think, who is not, they can't kind of like sneeze and get expensive cards, or, like just like if a mid-core player wants to, invest in a deck like maybe Arcana Force, Materia Actors, some of the, Tenyi, some of the things that came out in this recent set, just as our examples. For them, that's actually a commitment for them. Like building a deck, I think, is a commitment for a lot of players, and they want space for that deck to be played. And they want the deck to also be able to be played for, longer than just until the next set comes out. That's a different thing that Farfa kind of talked about. I'm sure he'll maybe talk about it more in his video, which we're going to get to. So I'll go ahead and pull it up now. But yeah, I understand Josh's general sort of thing. Let's read the comments, because I'm curious what people are saying about this. Oh gosh, okay, this top comment is, hopefully I can zoom this in some so people can actually read this. Is this Hopefully a good enough font size. People, you guys can maybe... You guys can read this, right? Good? Hopefully. I don't know if I can get it... I might be able to get it a little bit bigger. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. That did not work. That was... Okay. So yeah, this is as big as it's going to get. So, Josh, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're out of touch. This is his words, not mine, by the way. Skill does not equal deck investment or meta adoption. Many skilled players may not have the resources to constantly acquire top-tier meta decks or chase after new releases, but that doesn't diminish their game knowledge or strategic prowess. Players often perform exceptionally with non-meta or rogue decks simply because of the deep familiarity and expertise with their chosen strategy. Skill and deck choice are not always directly correlated. Okay. Strong local communities provide critical environments for players to improve through practice, discussion, and competition. Many top players begin by dominating local scenes before transitioning to larger tournaments. Support your locals. A local player's skill level isn't inherently inferior just because they don't compete at nationals or YCS events. Comments like, you expect to just pick up any deck and win a YCS with it, playing against better players and playing worse than them, diminishes the diverse paths to success in the game and implies that only the most financially or meta-invested players deserve respect, ignoring the hard work and dedication of others. The comment reflects a narrow view that overlooks the diversity of player experiences and the critical role local communities play in competitive ecosystems. The real answer is we need a format to support these lower fan favorite decks. This product line could also allow them to innovate in terms of design where Yu-Gi-Oh has been sorely lacking. Yeah, I guess this comment's, yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me. The competitive players really just not understand. In my opinion, mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh players gravitate towards Master Duel. That's why it's popular and well-populated. Gotta love Josh arguing against a point no one made. 1+ hour of Josh missing the point. He just missed the point of the video entirely. Josh, the problem is that everything that is not meta is basically garbage at this point. Not just old ones getting new support, but new ones like Mimical 2. And almost everyone who's playing Yu-Gi-Oh IRL is playing a competitive deck at this point. Yes, even at locals, the power gap. Ooh, this is long. Yeah, I'm just gonna skim. There are dozens of archetypes, new and old, that will literally never see play in person because they can't beat a competitive deck, and I find that incredibly sad. You can play some of these with more success in Master Duel, but shouldn't be how you do it. A new format, they excluded the highest tier decks would help the situation a little, but there's also a ton of generic staples that contribute to the problem. Yu-Gi-Oh's rampant and, yeah, the power creep. Yeah. It basically comes down to other card games cutting into local scenes. A mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player. Okay, so I don't admire Josh's ignorance of who the mid-core player is. He mentioned that essentially the super competitive players that are bringing heavy competitiveness to their small-scale tournaments do it because they enjoy doing it. What's left out of that fact is that the player on the receiving end is not getting any enjoyment out of it. Okay, all right. So I get the gist of these comments. Basically, these comments are kind of what I'm saying, which is that like, there's more to Yu-Gi-Oh than competing at the very top end. And that sort of seems to be a little bit of the, something of the issue. So, yeah. Your take boils down to you're just bad at the game because you don't think about, all right, well, cool. That's Josh's video. I will now watch Farfa's video where he reacts to Josh because I think that'd be good. And then we'll watch MBT's and then Jesse's and then that'll be that. Okay. Farfa reacts to mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh. There's me. I'm live streaming right now. Brief discussion on, oh God. Wait, this is an hour. Wait, I thought this was short. This is an hour long. It's 2 hours long. Oh my God. Jeez, Farfa likes a lot of my videos. Sheesh. Okay, how do we want to handle this, chat? Like, I mean, I really thought this was going to be like a reaction. Like, these videos would be short. I mean, my video is only like 9 minutes, and people are talking for like hours about this. But I guess he's reacting to Josh's video, so of course it's really long. I think, okay, can we make we should make a new rule on YouTube. If you ever react to a video, I think you should have to like just put a TLDR. Because this is a lot. Okay, I want to watch MBT react to it as well. I want to watch these all. Like, I want to watch them, but this is just so long. Okay, let's see what we can get out of this.
1 hour 20. Oh my god, let's do this. Josh reacts to the loss of the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player. All right, as you guys know, Josh is very biased towards everything. Oh my god, look at the dislikes. You know, it's not often that Josh misses, but I will say just off the bat, before we get into this 1 hour 20 discussion, you know, of course, guys, you know, let's just say, let's keep recycling the content here. Let's keep the train going. I think what happens is Josh can sometimes allow his love of Yu-Gi-Oh to be blurred with love of the company that runs the game. And I think sometimes there's a big difference that people sometimes need to understand and recognize.
Hello, Father. Greetings from a new father to an advanced
Congratulations,
father
Atun. I'll message you properly afterwards. That's insane. Congrats, bro. I know how you feel. There's a difference between defending Yu-Gi-Oh, or rather criticizing Yu-Gi-Oh as a game, but loving Yu-Gi-Oh and criticizing the people who make it and run it. And I think sometimes that line gets a little bit blurred. Just in this discussion. Okay, so 1 hour 20. This is gonna be a long one. Let's lock in.
We've even reacted to anything or have taken part in any sort of discourse about the Yu-Gi-Oh.
All right, we're gonna skip to the end
I saw a little bit of a
and
discussion over on
see
Twitter
what he's
this
got
morning,
to
and
say.
people have also suggested it in my Discord, or said they wanted my opinion.
Etc. But Yu-Gi-Oh is not anywhere near a middle ground of having something like that. Yu-Gi-Oh, like I mentioned earlier, is the bad card. It makes you want to be like, damn, go again, open another pack, and now you get a good card. Like at a fundamental level, that is what your brain is doing, right? Not really. Yes, it is. That is literally how card packs and boosters are designed. This isn't up for debate. This is a discussion. So, in my world, it would be nice if every single card in a pack that you pulled was useful in some type of way, either by drafting, either by alternative format or the modern format, or etc. etc. But Yu-Gi-Oh is not anywhere near a middle ground of having something like that. Yu-Gi-Oh, like I mentioned earlier, is when you pull a card, it is only viable and usable in the modern advanced constructed format. It has no other use other than that. So that niche has to be filled by some other ways, either alternative formats, alternative game modes, etc. etc. But I would like to see like essentially just product uprooted, because I don't like the way like product works, you know?
Yeah.
And Yu-Gi-Oh encourages you to not buy the packs because, like, yeah, exactly. Like, why do people buy packs? Vendors, I feel like, are the ones that buy mass amounts of product so that they can minimize their percentage.
Remind me to
chances of
talk
not winning
about
the right
this.
cards to then sell the singles. And
Let me pause again.
All competitive players probably buy singles, or they buy like a case, hoping to pull full cores and sell the rest. But that's like big boy money, right? If you're willing to like drop hundreds and potentially thousands on like a case, cases for a new set.
So that just in case anyone likes a certain archetype or a certain card that was printed, they have a way to play that card, which I think is in a way understandable, in another way a little unrealistic. 100% more than currently, you'll oftentimes get an entire set where like 1 or maybe 2 cards are actually good, and literally the rest is spectacular. I mean, that is, no, that's not true. If there are sets.
Hold on, what is he disagreeing with here?
100% more than currently, you'll oftentimes get an entire set where like 1 or maybe 2 cards are actually good, and literally the rest is spectacular. I mean, that is, no, that's not true. If
kinda true.
Wait, what?
Look at Supreme Darkness, the next core set. What's useful from there? 100 card set. What's like useful out of it? What would be considered a good pull? Like 10 of the cards there? 12 of the cards there? That's a very low number. For a 100.
Oh god, I'm sorry. I seem so checked out of this.
There are sets where not a lot of new additions are being made to the game, except for a couple of cards, but all are usually
value-wise like 5 of them. Yeah, exactly.
Other purposes, just adding new.
I'm just listening.
I don't think you can name a set right now that outright had just 1 or 2 useful cards and nothing else in there.
I feel like Zuda is close to that description, Josh.
But 1 or 2 cards is right.
But I'm not trying to judge because I'm not a TCG player. I'm not trying to like
talk too much about that. To it. Also, the legendary duelist with Bear and the Flare. But you know what? They've gotten the feedback on that. They've gotten the memo, right? The legendary duelist sets were bad. I agree with you there. But that is something that's also changed. Like the side sets have improved. The Baron set had their last, which became a meta. Yeah, I think people just like to exaggerate a lot to get their points through. But I don't think it's a great way of arguing. Like I don't
think it's an exaggeration. I don't know what the number has to be.
I don't think it's an exaggeration.
In my mind, it should be 100%.
Either.
Every card in a set should be useful, viable in some type of way, in some type of format. Whether it's modern, whether it's alternative, whether it's Heart of the Underdog, whether it's draft. I would like to see most cards in a set be useful in some shape or form. In Yu-Gi-Oh, it's the polar opposite end of that spectrum.
Imagine trying to make sense of Parpa and Joshua at the same time. I know, yeah, it's kind of hard.
How big that number is 100 cards, and there's like 5 of them that you would be okay with pulling. Maybe 10 if you're trying to pull like a Crystron core or something. You know what I mean? Like, we're not even up to a quarter of a set being like good pulls, good card to have. Like, that is a big number of cards that are just useless. Toilet paper, right? I think that's a big problem with product.
I think if like even for this, it's just exaggerated, right? Like you can play 6 Samurai. I don't know. I'm struggling to find more in this discussion other than it just feels like we are warming up some old points that are still relevant and fair enough, but like for example, Farfa's response just boiled down to Yu-Gi-Oh! Extended, which yes, expensive game, true, but not really what we're talking about right now. And fillers. I would love to 6 Salmon regional with Parking Snake if they didn't misplay. Yeah, see, but they wanted to win even if they're misplaying, because that's what Farfa said. Farfa says he doesn't want to work for winning against the meta decks.
How did he extrapolate that? That's so disingenuous, Josh. What? I didn't say you should be able to win games without trying. Like, what is he talking about? That is really bad faith, Josh.
So the argument is they should have won with a cheaper, worse deck while playing worse than you.
Hey, Grand Harrier, how's it going? I didn't see you in chat.
That's how he's trying to say. I know that's how he's trying to say. I'm joking. We're basically done.
Oh, okay.
Master Duel is great for all these decks.
German humor be like, lying. Ja, das ist ein good joke, genau. What was this joke? Like.
Okay, all right, whatever. This is a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Like I don't these like reaction to reaction videos are remind me never to do this again. Okay, so I have thoughts. I think Farfa is more on the money, at least if like, you know, relative to what I was saying. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like Supreme Darkness is pretty much it's what we're kind of talking about. A lot of the cards in this set are not seen as very good, and it feels like, for the most part, product is kind of becoming more and more like either it's yeah, I hope they all react to this. MBT would be a quick watch. Yeah, okay, that's I want to watch MBTs because it sounds like I trust that he'll, you know, have a. Yeah, let's just watch that. Let's just watch that. We will watch that and we can see what he has to say. Because I have like stuff I want to say, but I feel like Josh just went so long that it's kind of tough to like get into it. And then Farfa's really just reacting to Josh reacting. So I'd like to see MBT because MBT will be independently reacting to this. So yeah.
None of these matter. One Piece is the Bandai card game. Every Bandai card game exists in the context of every other Bandai card game, and once a new one comes out, all of...
Oh, wait, okay.
I want to talk about this video that showed up on my screen a bunch this past weekend, most frequently in the form of a Twitter thread about how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is losing mid-core players. Here that refers to not players that are bad like me, but just sort of a nebulous, middle-of-the-road player profile who, like, cares a little about competitive, but is casual in a sort of competitive sense. They're not, like, blue-eyesing everywhere, but just, like, baddies, you know, like, jobbers. And for some reason, they're not sticking around. So says Paul. Now, this has generated a ton of discourse. I want to watch it while I eat. And you're probably watching this on Progressives. So if you're watching this on Progressives, please, I have to tell you, there's context at the beginning of the video. So Progressives, if you're cutting this up, you know, make sure to include the context at the beginning of the video.
So today I wanted to talk about a Yu-Gi-Oh phenomenon that I've been observing a lot more in the last couple of years. It's something that I also alluded to on Twitter, but I felt like bringing it to a full discussion in a video would be a really good thing. So basically, it's the sort of loss of the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player. And what I mean by that is...
also known as Farfa's chat.
This. So competitive Yu-Gi-Oh right now actually feels like it has kind of hit a bit of a fever pitch. Like, people seem to be really enjoying, you know, grinding the competitive YCS scene more now than ever. I see a lot of videos that are, you know, kind of these niche, nitty-gritty, you know, getting into the highly incredible specifics of like combo lines, where to use hand traps, things like that. And people seem to be enjoying the Malice and Rizio format. And for the players that, you know, travel to these YCS events, playtest rigorously, they can afford the best cards, and that's not really an issue for them. They seem to be really enjoying competitive Yu-Gi-Oh right now. And this is good. I want to be clear that I think that this is a good thing. They're having fun with competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
I love whenever Paul has to make a video of this caliber, he has to couch it in like 15 different qualifiers, because he's like, listen, this ain't my fucking first day on the internet, okay? Whatever I say is going to get filtered through 18 other content creators and end up as a weird, fucked up telephone game of how I said it. So he's like, before we get into this, here are the people I'm not talking about.
On the other end,
yeah, that's actually... I knew I'd have a fun time with MBT. Yeah, Joseph he's spot on with that. A lot of times when I make these videos, I feel like I'm having to like reiterate a lot of the same sort of like qualifier points, because I know how it goes online, where like if I say like, you know, if I say a certain thing, people like take it out of context. So that's kind of why I'm like that. Anyway,
people who recently have been embracing older formats, things like GOAT and Edison format come to mind. Some people also like to play.
Don't want to belabor this point. Crucial element of Yu-Gi-Oh is that there are now, more than ever before, more formats to play. So if one format sucks balls, you can take a break from it. Now, they're not formats in any sort of capacity they would have to be to have like a continuous player-based growth, but at least there's an option.
Play toss or, you know, hat format as well. But basically these older snapshot formats. And you see it a lot, especially in content creation now. A lot more people are doing, you know, some sort of a spin the wheel, wheeled GOAT.
Fuck you. Actually, wait. Do I have a series with a wheel right now? I don't. You're right. You're right, Paul. 100% correct. Fuck all wheel enjoyers.
It's kind of expanded to include things like cubes and draft as well. And again, that's really cool.
Oh, turn up the video volume.
So, again, not crucial that we are cubing.
Take a dive back into these nostalgic old Yu-Gi-Oh times. It's great. There tends to be a lot of sort of popular viewership among casual and nostalgic fans there. So if you're a content creator, that's great. You know, we did our Retro Rivals series with the Retro Pack, and that was a lot of fun. And you know, you see a lot of content from that end of the spectrum as well. But what it feels like there isn't a lot of is a lot of interest and sort of almost maybe support for the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player, I call it. What is the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player exactly? Well, Basically, this is this player who, they've played Yu-Gi-Oh for a really long time. They
I actually want to move my camera real quick just so I can see Joseph's beautiful face as well. Okay. Anyway.
Play locals most weeks. They've been in a few regionals, and they do want to win, but they also kind of want to win with their favorites. They get enthusiastic or excited about anime decks, or just some of their favorite decks getting new support. And even if their favorite deck isn't like super duper YCS level viable, they still want to do the best they can with it. And they want to find content about that. They want to find places to play those decks. And what I'm basically finding is happening is that these players have been sort of neglected a little bit and are now migrating to other card games or just quitting Yu-Gi-Oh in some cases. So this past weekend, we went to Bandai Card Games Fest. It's basically the nationals that they have for all the different Bandai games. That's One Piece, Union Arena.
Okay, so kind of hard to pause the video at this point because I know he's winding up to a larger discussion, but at base, I think this claim is fraught, to say the least. It is fraught. And to those of you who heard the word fraud and got so hard they passed out, I apologize. I think that I could not disagree more with the context, or with the concept that there exists a sort of middle class of Yu-Gi-Oh players who want to win their way and repeatedly bring a pet deck to locals, maybe something that they enjoyed from the anime back in the day, and they are not getting catered to. Konami is doing everything in their power to empower players at that level. I mean, look at the fucking cards in Suda. It's almost exclusively cards for pet deckers. But at the same time, there is a difference between Konami printing cards specifically to help these people and these people having an outlet to play the things they want to play.
Bingo. Yes. Okay. Yeah. He's probably going to talk about this more, but yes, bingo. That is what I'm getting at. My argument, I hope the video kind of made it clear, or maybe didn't make it clear enough, but he's on the money with that. It's not that Konami is not catering to these players. They are releasing plenty of cards that this player can have a lot of fun with and build with. So Joseph is like right on the money with that. That's 100% what I'm saying. It's not that Konami isn't releasing cards that the players can have fun with. It's that there's not a place to play those cards, or it doesn't feel like there's at least a space for those cards to be played. So yes, I 100%. I'm with that.
I think Konami is doing a decent job of printing stuff for these players. These players are not being cordoned off and put into a format or a location or a side event or something that would empower them to continue doing their insane, fruitless endeavor.
Bingo.
And I know he's going to talk about Bandai card games, but all card games that aren't Yu-Gi-Oh have something like this. How long did Pokemon have fucking expanded? Magic has 99 different formats. I do feel like the pool exists in such a way, and this dovetails into the discussion I was having in Shorts, Paul was having on Twitter, Peeps was having on Twitter, that cards are being printed for a demographic of player that exists and has no home.
Yes.
A group of individuals are like, I want the new Arcana Force support because I'm an Arcana Force fan. They got it.
Yeah. Wow. Arcana Force. Hey. Even that's the one that I talked about earlier.
Can't do anything with it. Their only options are go to locals and get absolutely butt blasted or stay home.
Yes. Yeah. See, Joseph gets it. Joseph, he understands. Yeah. I gotta have him on one day. This is precisely what I was talking about. Yeah. I mean, it's not that Konami is not making the cards for the people. It's that the people don't have a place to play the cards. So, yes. Yeah.
On Battle Spirits, and I feel like I'm forgetting something else. Dragon Ball Super Fusion World.
Okay, real quick. None of these matter. One Piece is the Bandai card game. Every Bandai card game exists in the context of every other Bandai card game, and once a new one comes out, all of the other ones cease getting supported in any sort of meaningful way. We all know this.
And so basically, like a lot of people we met there were really big fans, and that was cool. And they would oftentimes tell us, hey, I'm a really big fan of you guys. I don't like play Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, but I still watch your content. And that's a nice compliment to hear, but it is a little bit worrying because it means that these are players who, in some way or another, got burned from Yu-Gi-Oh or just disinterested, and they migrated to a card game that they maybe feel better suits their needs.
It's true. This is something I hear a lot too. And I want to be clear, very easy to make a self-selection claim here and be like, if you are watching Paul's content, if you are a Team APS fan, you are probably more on the casual side. This isn't a criticism of Paul or the content he creates. Unquestionably, a significant amount of the content on Team APS is geared toward a more casual audience than someone like me or like fucking, God forbid Josh Schmidt, but even someone like me. But even someone like me, for whom a significant amount of the content is, here's the new deck coming out in TCG, here's how to play with and against it. A lot of people come up to me at events and in my day-to-day life, like when I'm at the fucking grocery store, they're like, I love your stuff, I'm still subscribed, I watch it on occasion, don't play Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. Like, even people who at one point were nose to the grindstone up on the meta are like, eh.
So what are these needs exactly? Well, I go to a lot of conventions as it happens, and I go to them almost, I'd say, like more than I go to YCS events now. I go to, you know, your New York Comic Con, your Anime Expo.
I will say, Talarian, I always appreciate seeing your name because I'm like, wow, Talarian 101. Now I remember there's another game.
DreamCon, stuff like that. I like meeting fans and just other like card game players at these events and talking to them and getting kind of their real lived experiences with Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever else.
Real lived
like,
experiences.
Why did they quit Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, why do they, you know, enjoy my content sometimes, but still like they don't really enjoy playing Yu-Gi-Oh? And some of the reasons that I oftentimes hear are things like getting priced out of the game, the power curve of the game, just kind of leaving their favorite decks behind. Maybe they quit because of pendulums or link monsters, or you know, it's just something to do with Konami, right? There's a bunch of different things people say about that. And I think that all those reasons are fairly valid to varying degrees. Like this is going to, of course, you know, from person to person, people quit at different times for different reasons. I'm not saying it all.
Yeah, obviously the hardest way to determine why people quit Yu-Gi-Oh is to ask them, because they will lie to your face. They'll be like, I quit because of synchros, did you? Sometimes people will be like, I quit because wind-up was no longer playable, did you? A significant amount of people I talk to, I'm like, hey, they're like, oh, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, but I don't anymore. Now the Blue Eyes is bad. Really? Did you quit in 2003? You quit in 2017? Come on.
Always falls into one of those four.
A lot of the times, the reason people quit is because they just generally lose interest or don't have time or something, and then they have to post-hoc invent a reason why they quit, so that they can like also be a part of a movement of people that think Yu-Gi-Oh has gone too far. You know what I'm saying? It can't be sufficient to be like, I just sort of fell out of love with it. It has to be like, because.
Yeah, this is very true.
Categories. It could be other reasons why somebody might quit. But I think that what Yu-Gi-Oh seems to kind of have really lost at the end of the day, and it's just, in my opinion, you can weigh in, is it's just lost the middle ground. It feels like we are there's no longer space for the player who just wants to play. Here's an example I've been giving, Six Samurai. They recently got support in Rage of the Abyss. And it was some pretty cool support cards, right? A couple new synchros and like other things like that. And they're even going to be getting more support cards in the next couple sets. But the thing is, Six Samurai don't fit into either of the camps that I described earlier.
So this is really interesting because you can actually, if you look closely, see the outline of House of Champs' eyes bleeding through the Paul skin suit. It was a very, very clever disguise, but unfortunately I have seen through it.
So basically, you know, Six Sams aren't really going to be beating Malice and Ryziel. I know that you can optimistically speak and say like, oh, well, maybe the perfect Six Samurai player can do it. Sure, cool. But I think that for the average player, it's kind of accepted and known that like Six Sams aren't going to be winning the next YCS.
I talk about this a lot in my quoted thread, responding to Paul's thread, and Peeps' quoted thread. Oh, Jesus Christ. We need forums back, man.
We really do.
He's
Bring back forums. Press 1 if you say we should bring back forums. Twitter sucks. Reddit even sucks. Actual forums would be great.
100% correct. Suda, again, perfect example of this phenomenon, contains new stuff for something like 10 like fan favorite old archetypes. I'm talking Gladiator Beast. I'm talking Six Samurai. I'm talking Heroes. I'm talking Arcana Force. And I'll just be the first one to let you all know, not a single one of them is even going to be remotely playable in any sort of competitive capacity. And importantly, that's probably for the best because the gameplay loop they have dreamed up for 80% of these decks are build a board bullshit until you're like daring your opponent to open Dark Ruler evenly or FTK or stun. That's like the
That's an entirely separate conversation, and it's very related, and I actually plan on making a thread and a video about that as well. But yes, Joseph totally understands.
Only way these older decks modernized for current are ever dreamed up is they have to build a board your opponent can possibly play through, FTK, or stun. And, I mean, what do you do about that, right? Like, so this is it. It's like, in what capacity does this middle player exist? Konami seems to think there's a whole class of individuals that are just champing at the bit in order to purchase product, but only product for one specific archetype, but only provided they can never play that product in any sort of competitive capacity, but not so invested in that archetype that they're currently trying to play it for fear of being laughed out of locals. It's really strange, right? It's odd.
Also, though, Six Sams can't be played in Edison format, right?
Yep. There is, of course, a 6-Sam deck in Edison format. It sucks balls.
Six Samurai cards. So if you're sort of this mid-core player and you're excited about the new support for Six Samurai, or maybe recently Madolche, or something like that.
I think Orcus is an exception at the moment. To be clear, occasionally Konami will print legacy support that makes the deck really good. And that is good, but also not appealing to players who are turned off by like consistent competitive play.
What do you do, right?
Yeah, definitely bring
like
back
less
forums.
and less content is being made around these decks. Like you don't really see as many deck profiles. There's not.
Yeah, to be honest, a significant amount of the stuff that we're making TMTs for, we are the first and occasionally only person looking at a deck at any sort of competitive capacity. Frequently, the ecosystem for maybe 30-40% of decks, the draft chaff in the middle of almost every set is there will be an Elixordio and a Dual Evolution video the literal day the cards are revealed. There will be a Lithium video showing off some really rudimentary preliminary combos. 6 months later, Joseph Rothschild himself will make exactly one video about the deck 1 week before release, and then no one will ever talk about it again. Because the deck isn't, good enough to consistently top regionals. You don't get regional top videos. There aren't people making videos breaking down the meta that include this deck, maybe in the abstract and a tier list, but that's it.
Not really as much enthusiasm for these cards when they come out. A lot of times when people are buying Rage of the Abyss, they're looking for the most expensive cards, right? They're looking to pull a Dominus Impulse or a Multi-Army Fuwalos, the expensive secret rare. And like, I think back and I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh's kind of always been this way to some degree. It's always been an expensive $100 secret rare card. So then I think, okay, what's changed now? What's different? And I think what it is this sort of weird late stage Yu-Gi-Oh, I almost want to call it. That was actually the video I wanted to make as well, which is like, people aren't really opening packs to just get cards and trade them. They're opening packs specifically to get the cards they need. There's a lot more, information and knowledge out there. So like decks are optimized out the gate. Oftentimes we kind of know what the best stuff is going to be. And also there's less trading because people are not as interested in buying sealed product and opening it and then like maybe trading some of the ultra rare Mermail or Six Samurai cards or Shark cards that they pulled in Rage of the Abyss. They just want to get their Fuwalos, get their Impulse, and they will buy it if they need to. Or if they aren't interested in building those other decks I mentioned, they'll just buy the singles for that online. And so there's sort of less trading going on.
He's right. I mean, this all is the consequence of Yugging in a post-internet world, right?
Yeah.
Because prior to not only dissemination of information on the internet, but also an interest in that information, we played Yu-Gi-Oh! In a very different way. Magic the Gathering is having this exact same growing pain. How do you sell loot boxes to people who have access to TCG Player? You know, we're in a position now that, like, let's say I'm a little kid and I go, oh, daddy, you know, buy me a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, and I open a Flu Under Ease card and I go, I want to play Flu Under Ease. Okay, well, back in the day, that would be the start of a 6-month journey, you know, of me scrounging around locals and trying to figure out, like, who had Rabinas, who was willing to part with M-Pens, you know, waiting for reprint sets in which those cards could theoretically become affordable to me, and then asking people, hey, do you want your M-Pen from this? You know, it would be me playing bad versions of the deck for months until I was able to get something that even resembled optimal, and never landing on an optimal deck, because guess what, asshole? You're a kid. You don't know what's optimal in a Flu Under Ease deck. However,
Gotta say, Joseph makes good reaction videos. I think he's been the best I've watched so far. He really understands the points well and articulates them well. Shout outs to Joseph.
now we get day 0 pre-sales on TCG and Card Market. Day 0 deck lists from, I mean, me, but also professional players like Joshua Schmidt, like Jesse Cotton. You have Pack looking at cards the second that they've been revealed and integrating them into the existing metagame. If you want to get into Flu Under Ease, you just have to search Flu Under Ease deck profile on YouTube, click the most recent one, go to TCG Player. You can buy it from direct for $3.50. So there's no reason to even buy a second pack. And for that reason, the entire culture of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has shifted. People aren't willing to get dumpstered by bad decks at their locals. People aren't bringing bad decks to locals, so mid decks can't win against those. People aren't trading because there's really no reason to. The effort that you spend negotiating a trade is meaningless due to the fact that, guess what? Like, you could always just access whatever you want from the internet anyway. And as that cultural shift has occurred, it has kind of sorted people rather into 3 camps. Someone in the very early stages of their Yu-Gi-Oh! Journey, someone who is in the process of taking the steps necessary to build a deck that is quote-unquote good, and then someone who is actually good at the game, instead has sorted them into uninformed and informed. And uninformed people are bad at the game and play garbage, and informed people, regardless of their quality as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, are playing a deck list from Jesse Cotton using cards they purchased in singles form.
And like I said, the content kind of seems to be
Woof. Yeah, nailed it.
skewing more towards the hyper-casual, nostalgic end of things. So
That's a you thing. This is a Team APS thing. Their content is a little more casual. I think there are other content creators in the space who have made a really big name for themselves. Jesse comes to mind, making almost exclusively competitive content. Jesse was actually a really bad example because he makes a lot of boomer nostalgia bait. Me.
So what do you do when you are just a
Sam's uploading
mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh! Player interested in these sort of middle-of-the-road decks, and there's nothing there for you?
Yeah.
I don't want to say that it's completely hopeless. Like, I feel like there are still YouTubers and stuff who are making, you know, a deck profile for these things or kind of combo bits for these things. I don't want to, you know, say that that's not happening at all or sort of discredit their work.
I do. As someone who makes those, I feel often that I'm one of very few people in the community that is. The reason I made 10-minute testing is because I felt there was kind of a lack of that kind of content. But of course, in the past, there were a lot of combo videos. And importantly, combo videos aren't exactly what people want when they're looking up combos. They want to see like a deck in action. They want to see like context. But outside of like, again, Elixorio, Dual Evolution, Lithium, one of my videos a week, it is really frustrating that like, where the fuck are you going to find a 6-Sam combo?
It's just that it seems like some of the buzz around like lots of archetypes getting supported that I felt a few years ago, it felt visceral and tangible. It's not there anymore. And it's really tough to describe. And so that's why I'm kind of putting this discussion out there, because I think that you guys tend to have a good way with words in the comments. Sometimes people can, you know, better just better explain kind of like what it is that I feel like I'm seeing. And I wonder if this is something that other people are seeing at their card shops. Because it does lead to the bigger issue maybe, which is that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is sort of bleeding players to a lot of these Bandai games. They are oftentimes seen as more accessible. They are oftentimes a little bit more affordable. Sometimes they have like better pricing and things like that. But I think that just the general thing is that the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh! Player feels more seen and more recognized and maybe more cared for by these Bandai games. And it could also be Magic or Lorcana or something else. I'm not saying it's only those.
Don't worry, I don't think more Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are feeling seen by Lorcana. I want to be completely clear about this. I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is bleeding a whole shitload of players to One Piece. I think what's happening is a lot of people are presented with the choice, do I want to learn how to play One Piece or do I want to learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And they are picking One Piece. That's because our new player experience is so bad, because there's no place for like really, really early Yu-Gi-Oh! Players who are still nonetheless willing to become competitive over time, and also because One Piece is a terrible game for babies, and as a result, that's a pretty easy choice to make. One of the best parts about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is its retention is insane. Like, it's really, really good, but it has such a bad onboarding problem.
But then maybe what Yu-Gi-Oh! Seems to be giving them.
I'm doing a little trolling.
Yeah, I want people to weigh in. How do you feel about this? Do you think that this is a problem? Like, what's changing here? What's caused it? I don't want this to be one of these videos where it's like, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is dying, right? I'm not saying that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is dying or it's dead, but I think that it's a phenomenon where like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is changing, and I think that maybe Konami should be aware of this. Maybe they're planning something. I think that there still needs to be like a mid-power level format where somebody can play new support cards for their Sharks or their 6-Sams or the Madolche or whatever, because those can't be played in Edison, but like still with a power level where they're viable and don't have to deal with like, you know, the current top tier decks. That's like one of the big things. There's other stuff too. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Could still use league system. I still think the mixed rarity system could help with kind of enthusiasm around buying sold product. But all in all, yeah, I don't want this to be like a Yu-Gi-Oh's dying, abandon all hope, jump ship. This isn't even me, to be clear. I'm not playing any of these other new like Bandai games and stuff like that. All right, like I still just play Yu-Gi-Oh! Pretty much exclusively, and I still like it. I like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't mind like playing it, but I just think that these are. I've heard enough testimony now that it's a little bit worrying and maybe concerning. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And I need to go now because the sunlight is just blaring at my face over here, and I don't even know how I made it through this video, but I did. So yeah, weigh in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.
Pass turn. That's how he closes out the Amplifier videos. Pass turn. Go. All right, so this is a little bit unfocused, especially here at the end. I think a lot of the Amplifier videos are basically just stream of consciousness Paula logs. And you know, I would like to have like a thesis statement at some point. I think the definition of like a mid-core player is kind of sort of vague in such a way that's going to make it difficult to talk about it. But I think I may be impressing a little bit upon him. I may be inferring a little. I think what he's asking is where is Yu-Gi-Oh? Where is the lower powered format where these decks theoretically could get played? I'll tell you right now, we tried in rotation to make that happen. We tried in Trinity way back in the day to make something like that happen. Unfortunately, the problem with establishing anything official at this point in time is all of these decks, from Six Samurai to Arcana Force to Hero, are being designed with the power level of 2,025 cards in mind, right? Regardless of the effectiveness and power level of these decks, if you are trying to bring down the power level of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and you ban out all the top decks, and you ban out all the hand traps, you're going to get 6 Sam FDK'd 100 times out of 100.
Yep.
Like, there's a bunch of uninteractivity all the way down, because these decks are being designed to, theoretically, you know, it doesn't actually happen in real life, but in a vacuum, beat Fiendsmith decks, beat Malice decks, beat Ryziel decks, right? But I think Paul is right in understanding that this is something the Yu-Gi-Oh community desperately needs. A lower-powered format where you can play stupid decks. And I've been really thinking about it, because I don't think there is a fantastic way to do it. There's no way to... Yeah, Royal Kings is right. There's no way to fix this by taking cards out, because it is design principles that permeate everything, and so much of Yu-Gi-Oh is contextual.
Yeah.
It's not common charity. It's not called common charity. You can't play fucking 6 Sams in common charity. I want shiny cards. The only way to fix it is to go back in time 20 years, but if you go back in time 20 years, you have a different problem. I want to be clear. I don't hate where Yu-Gi-Oh is. I don't want this to come at the expense of the continued existence of high-tier, sweaty meta play. I really like high-tier, sweaty meta play. I think it is two things. Firstly, there needs to be something the community can kind of wrap their head around. And secondly, there needs to be a cultural shift. There needs to be like a shift among the player base to be more receptive to alternative ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
And I think we are seeing that shift happen in real time as people get more interested in Limited and Cubes. They start doing Masochist challenges, running their own prog series and stuff. I don't know. Honestly, I think... And all of you saying draft, I get draft. Draft is a fun way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not what Paul's talking about.
Very true.
I think that... I've just tried to mull around ideas in my head as to what could conceivably cause this to happen. I think the templating from not Heart of the Underdog, but what is it? The one where you show up and get a precon?
Yeah, right. We're talking about Rivalry.
Rivalry. I think that templating's not bad. Like, I think... maybe something like this.
Let's hear it.
Maybe some content creator, maybe some content creator, every time the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG rotates in quotes, you know what I mean. Every time the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG enters a new era, like right now we're what, 7 into Go Rush, 7 out of 12 probably. So like with the release of Duelist Nexus, maybe someone creates a format in which there is a pre-constructed Chimera deck, Infernoble deck, and Tistina deck, and it's like rentals, right? And then with each new booster set, they make like a canonized pre-constructed deck for some of the archetypes in there.
Interesting.
And then you play with these decks, which one person has the ability to tweak in terms of power level. Rental format? Yeah, something like that. Literally just playing with rental mons.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think so far MBT's had the best overall take on my video. I think he understood it pretty well. It seems like he's very well aware of most of the points I was making. Yeah, we're gonna watch Jesse's video next, but it's right there. But yeah, I think overall he's definitely got the gist of it the best. I think Josh didn't probably really understand what I was saying, and I think like Farfo was just responding to Josh, which made it feel more like tangenty. But Yeah, I think oh wow, there's actually another person who responded to Josh's. There's so many people who have yeah. A lot of people have reacted to Josh's video. They seem like it sounds like he doesn't quite maybe get it in a lot of people's eyes. Anyway, though, let's talk more about Joseph. I think that his video lands pretty well with me. I think he got exactly what I was saying, and overall, I think, yeah, like he's got the gist of it. I think that we are kind of at a point now where something's probably got to give. Like, it isn't that Konami isn't making interesting cards for these decks, but rather that they are not giving these decks space to breathe. But there is a second issue, and one that it's been kind of swirling around in my head too, of and I'm glad that Joseph brings this up, that a lot of these decks, like, he mentions like Six Samurai FTK, and that exists. A lot of these decks, like Dark World, like Six Samurai, really anytime that a low tier deck gets new support, kind of in the 2023, 24, 25, like metagame and context, a lot of what happens is those cards are still designed by modern Yu-Gi-Oh standards, and so you kind of just end up with a lot of Omni Negates or potentially even hand loops or like burn FTKs, because the power level of the lower tier decks is still so high that like it's not enough to just say like, okay, we're gonna remove Ryziel, Malice, and like Fiendsmith from the equation and just think that things will be okay, because they won't. Like, there will still be a lot that's needed to do to like kind of tame the power level of the Six Samurai deck, because like it can get pretty like degenerate. So I'm not sure. I kind of like the idea of almost like a rental system, a Rivalry of the Warlord sort of thing, where the decks have to be pre-made to some degree to exclude the ability to do a lot of that stuff. Because if they aren't, then you can skim off the top the best decks, but if the next best things feel just as obnoxious, like a lot of the reason why nobody's playing certain of these low tier decks, like a 6M deck or a Dark. Like, think about Dark World, for instance. That's a pretty easy one. Dark World's rude as shit. It's obnoxious. It will hand loop you. And, like, I've played against it in Master Duel. You max C Dark World, you make that mistake, you will get decked out. Simple. They'll deck you out. Or, similarly, a lot of decks, like, kind of Super Heavy Sams and Six Samurai, though a lot of those decks are such that if they go unimpeded, if there aren't hand traps to stop them, they will just oppress you. They like if they go first, they're probably they're winning and they're just being rude in the process. If they go second, maybe they're not. But so yeah, I think that's I think that overall though, Joseph's he got the gist the best, I would say. I like that he also did not focus too much on the price thing, because like that wasn't really part of my original discussion, although like again, price is relevant, but it's really more about like at this point we're just talking like viability and like just what players have the ability to play and all of that. Yu-Gi-Oh's advanced format is very bloated and it is late stage, and so it seems like nothing's gonna really give, like we can't go back to this sort of age of wonder where we just don't know anything about like any good decks or whatever. Like that, it's Yu-Gi-Oh on the internet, and so that's always going to be there. Like there will be kind of a player where it's like, okay, if we take out the best decks, there will be some people who want to play Six Samurai the fun way and maybe the honest, more like the flavor of Six Samurai, and then others who are just kind of like, well, yeah, I could do that, or I can just like put a million Bushido counters in this thing and hand loop you. So you still have to kind of find a way to divide that up, like that problem. So, yeah, that's kind of where it gets rough. Like, I guess what I'm saying here is that most decks in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, when they just get to go first and are uninterrupted, will do some rude stuff. And yeah, you have to kind of do a certain amount of restructuring to ensure that like power levels, feel fair, because it's not like, I think for a lot of people, it'd be easy to say take the best decks out, but like you still have to do so much more work than that. And yeah, like the price thing, oh man. I feel like we're gonna have a lot more of these discussions. Like I'm glad that more people are talking about this. I always try to raise these points. I know like sometimes it seems like it's just like whiny or complaining, and like I know a lot of times we're just talking in circles, but I'm glad that more content creators are reacting to this stuff because I don't think enough people really like bring it up. Like I try to bring it up, and I'm glad that people are reacting to it. Okay, let's read some of the comments and see what people have to say, just to get a vibe. Is it just me, or do people talk weird about Paul? Like he's just throwing a discussion out there, and I feel like there's content creators that can't give a response without it feeling a little venomous. I didn't feel like MBT's video was venomous. It felt pretty. I thought it felt fine. I mean, I guess like, oh god, a lot of people responded to this. Yeah. I mean, okay. Anyway. I don't think it's just the mid-core players. I think even the hyper casuals are struggling to find a place in the Yu-Gi-Oh community because nobody at our level actually wants to play the game. If a player's not at least semi-competitive, they're either only consuming content for it or they haven't paid attention to the franchise since 2015, and retro formats aren't even really an answer to that because they're basically solved and have become, okay, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people relate to the mid-core thing. Someone says, okay, dude, this isn't a player mentality problem. It's a direct result of how Konami designs their cards to incentivize the player to look at Yu-Gi-Oh cards largely as chase card pieces you have to collect, either through pulls or secondary sales, to be relevant within their play space. That's it. You can't genuinely look at the common player and say, you just need to think about the game differently when the game is already funneling you and everyone into... I can't hit the thing to read more about it, but whatever. I get the gist of what they're saying. I think the big issue also with the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh players are they spend hundreds of dollars on a bad deck and can barely compete, and when they can pick up a top-tier deck for cheap in another game. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's quite true. My favorite part of watching so much Yu-Gi-Oh content, both casual and competitive, such as this, and I've never even played at locals. It's great. I was a textbook mid-core player, and yeah, I tapped out as soon as Snake Eye came out. There was just too much power creep between each set, and the prices were insane. Now I play Yu-Gi-Oh for the most part, but I might jump back in for the Crystron deck. Okay. Yeah, I get the gist. So I think MBT's video is good. I guess we'll watch Jesse's now. See what... Oh, God, it's 26 minutes. That's not so bad. We'll see what he has to say.
All right, the next react we got here today is from Team APS. Lost the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player. This was a big one. Only a 10-minute video. How did Farfa make this into a 2-hour video? I have no idea how Farfa's discussion became 2 hours. I have no...
Thank you, Jesse. I'm wondering the same thing myself.
No idea what he says in this video. I've seen people talk about it on Twitter, but I didn't read into it because I wanted to react to it on my own stream. If you like and subscribe to Paul as well, I'm going to post the description here. Josh made it 2 hours. Josh made my video 50 minutes, yeah. I try to be concise with my points, and I don't like repeating myself. Let's get into it.
Today I wanted to talk about a Yu-Gi-Oh phenomenon. So basically, it feels like it is. I see a lot of,
like,
kind of these niche, nitty-gritty, getting into the...
Reacting to Josh's perspective would be more interesting. Josh's video was fucking, like, an hour long.
Yeah.
Or more. I don't understand, because the issue is when you react to a video, it becomes longer than the source. Because you have to watch their video and pause it and speak. And I'm not sitting here for 3 hours talking about Josh's thing again. I want to hear what Paul has to say. That's what I try to do. Then if we need to have another reaction in the future, and you really want me to look at Josh's video, we can do that. But for now, I want to hear Paul's discussion, just Paul's, and then I want to voice my opinion based on what Paul says.
highly...
And reacting to this right after the mouse discussion, where we were very much angry. And if I have a bit of animosity left up in me, that's because of that. The format's definitely improved, though. I will give it that much. And I mean, I don't want to give the tone of I hate Yu-Gi-Oh, but because I'm trying to not, but still don't like Malice. The format's better, though.
They can afford the best cards, and that's not really an issue for them. They seem to be really enjoying competitive Yu-Gi-Oh right now, and this is good. I want to be clear that I think that this is a good thing. They're having fun with competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. On the other hand, you've also got a lot of... But basically, we'll go...
I love it. That's... So, like, I'm known as a competitive player, and I wish these videos would do better on my channel. I love sealed and more random elements of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they're still not random. Still a lot of skill expression. And that's why I always jump at the chance to these videos with Sam on his channel. But it's not that new. This isn't a new thing. I think that's good as well. I'm not sure what... I'm going to let him continue. I'm not sure what the point of this is.
And it's kind of expanded to include things like... There's been a lot of fun. And, you see a lot of the middle, sort of the mid-core really long time, and you're excited about anime. They want to find content neglected a little bit. And
like this. I don't know if they're quitting. And do they get neglected? So the problem with needing players like that is you can bunch them all up into one group, call them more casual players. But when you want to start like directing attention towards certain decks, certain communities... Okay, the frame is not the most flattering, but like we're talking about like the players who like their pet decks, right? Because it gets a bit messy. All of this gets a bit messy. And like pet deck communities, how do you make content for them? You have to make content for their subgenre and their one specific deck. But for a content creator perspective,
to do that properly, you have to know the deck very well, and that's a lot of effort, a lot of time. It's not feasible unless their specific communities make content for themselves, which is sometimes they do, like Hero community does. I think I do more than most other players do, or other content creators, where every single Wednesday I make the Let's Make a Meta series, where I go over more fun rogue casual decks. I try to explore them, make them as good as possible. That is the direct purpose of that series. And my viewership is good for that, compared to the rest of my channel, right? Because obviously compared to other people like DZ for Farfor or Sam, I have less viewers, but compared to my normal channel statistics, that series does well, right? So I don't know if I'd feel like that community's going away. Dark Arm Duels does it, I think. Yeah, he does. He's going. Kira Twig as well. There's a couple of them. And oftentimes I'll use those for inspiration, because I may not know as much about a deck. And I'll look at their videos, and then I may take their ideas and revamp it, right? Sounds like a more casual form where people can play their pet decks more as what they want. But if he's talking about by still keeping up at regionals, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. But the problem is I can't make every single deck playable all the time. Me doing it once a week for various different decks obviously means in 50 weeks, the old video I made is now obsolete by nature of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Metas progress. There's limits what you can do because it's very, very broad of a topic. Your Busted Blader deck cooks. There are many videos on my channel that are the same thing. I think midcore isn't a specific deck, just a player isn't as competitive, somebody not want to spend more than 150 for a deck, but still enjoy the game not as competitive. Yeah, exactly, right? But if we start talking about pet decking,
yeah, watch
pet decker are probably
more people
like
need to be watching
what you would call midcore player then.
Jesse, by the way.
The pet decker specifically is hard to address in that regards. It's really hard to address. So I'm gonna kind of ignore it for the rest of this because I just want to kind of set up that preface of how hard it is to appeal to those players without becoming a niche in itself. For the other players, it can be hard, but I think that's what people like me and Josh and Pac should be doing. Because competitive content only gets us so far, limited growth. And I think that we have the knowledge to be pushing casual but competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! With budget decks, with rogue decks that are still somewhat competitive. And that's really what I am trying to do. So this one feels like a bit personal to me. I'm not saying he's attacking me at all, because this is directly what I am trying to push with my YouTube. Why are you playing in regionals and midcore? I don't think that's necessarily a problem. Go with friends to have fun. Yeah. You go to push yourself, see how well you can do. A bit of a challenge. Secret rare staples like Fu and Dominus don't help midcore players. I haven't even gotten to the argument yet, so let me hear it out.
Card Games Fest, it's basically the nationals they have fusion, like earned from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or just, well, I go to a lot of conventions as eating fans.
You don't think a midcore goes to regional unless it's very close where they live? I don't go to regionals unless it is in Toronto. I think that is fine. I go to tournaments in the Greater Toronto area. I don't think that defines you as midcore. I guess it depends if you're in a metro area or not, but it's a lot harder to be a midcore player and go to regionals if you're not in a metro area, sure. But then that gets even more semantics about where you live. I don't want to deal with that.
Like, why do they enjoy games, kind of leaving? And I think in other categories, it can weigh in. Here's an example I've been, and they're even getting less in Ryziel aren't going to be winning about the new support is being made around this, right?
I follow in footsteps a lot for in content creation, even if it's in my own style and more competitive, if it wasn't clearly shown, but I do the same thing, right? And I can't play, and I don't play every single deck that's new when it comes out, but I showcase a lot of them, even the ones that are more rogue and such, and I play them, right? Like, my problem with this, I don't know if this is really true, because like, if your locals isn't crazy competitive, which many locals aren't, I feel like you can show up with 6 Sam and do fine. Yes, the more competitive a game or a region is, obviously playing the better deck will let you better results, but that will happen in any game. Better deck, or better build, or better whatever, will always just give you an initiate favor. Like, what does Fine Links do? I can top locals easy with 6 Samurai, I feel like. I understand I'm not the average person.
Yeah,
if you're going to be putting time into deck, you have to put time in.
You have
to understand that against meta decks, you are at an inherent disadvantage. Therefore, you have to make up for it. And the advantage to those decks is your deck doesn't rotate out, and your opponent doesn't know what you're doing as well. So there are some bonuses to playing stuff like this. I don't have a problem with these decks existing, and occasionally these decks break through into YCS top cuts, like Millennium. That had a couple YCS tops. That deck is not even close to what Snake Eye or U-Ball was last format, and nowhere close to Ryzel or Malice, but it topped. Plant Syndrome, maybe. And then as for content, maybe there's not as much content because it is easier for casuals and less work for the content creator to make more of the wheel type series and stuff. I think those have just grown, where the other type of content hasn't, but it still exists. I wouldn't say it doesn't exist at all. If you're known as the hero player, your locals knows what hero does since you always play it. After a while, yes. After a bit, that does happen, obviously.
To pull a Dominus Impulse or Multi-Army Wallows,
rule for themselves without it being so hard for the players. And I understand you can't draw direct parallels with this game and other card games like One Piece or Pokemon because the collectible market makes up a bigger portion of those games. And what that means is they can buy more products without needing the competitive cards to be what's carrying the cost of the set. However, Konami can still do better and we know they can because they have done better in the past. I'm not trying to excuse Konami, but also Konami still has to make it profitable for themselves. It's a business. That's completely understandable. But it'd also be better for them, even if the margins drop a bit, if it meant being better for the player because more people would play, therefore the numbers and volume would go up, which I think is overall better. I think there is a lot of room for content based on these decks to be explored by the community and showcase how it can be done. People don't take the SAM profile seriously. Yeah, I mean, listen, there can always be more content, but there can always be more competitive content because there really isn't that much. You define the midcore, something that goes local street 4 times a month and makes a good meta deck to try when local consistently doesn't really care enough to be competitive. Sure. The problem is we're all a bit different, right? It's a spectrum. As people leaving different games, it's pretty normal for players to leave games or play multiple games or rotate between games. Even I've done that. I've played One Piece. I've played Pokemon. I've played Magic. I played Vanguard even. I even tried the Star Wars game. Nothing wrong with taking a breath of fresh air or playing a little bit less Yu-Gi-Oh! To play other games as well. It's a game. A lot of fun. A lot of try different things. That's not really a problem I have. Oh, Vanguard fucking sucked. I'm not advertising Vanguard. Vanguard is ass. Must have been 11 years ago at this point. I tried one when I was like 13. Isn't the player leaving Yu-Gi-Oh! A bigger problem because it's hard for people to get into Yu-Gi-Oh? You'd think that, yet people somehow keep getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! Turning players.
Secret rare card.
It was a big red X. Fiendsmith stuff is so generic that it probably is an X as well. Like a big no-no.
I think that is this sort of weird late-stage Yu-Gi-Oh! I almost want to call it. That was actually a video I wanted to make as well, which is like, people aren't really opening packs to just get cards and trade them. They're opening packs specifically to get the cards they need. There's a lot more, information and knowledge out there. So like decks are optimized out the gate. Oftentimes we kind of know what the best stuff is going to be. And also there's less trading because people are not as interested in buying sealed product and opening it and then like maybe trading some of the ultra rare Mermail or Six Samurai
Culture's
cards.
changed though. That's not a Yu-Gi-Oh thing.
They just want to get their koalas, get their.
I don't think trading is big in these other card games either. Trading as a culture thing has been kind of obsolete as a nature of the internet and TCG player, and I feel like that's not just a Yu-Gi-Oh thing. Maybe I'm wrong.
Impulse and will buy if they need to, or they aren't interested in building those other decks.
Hold on. You're an example of a new player because a Master. Getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game feels like a big barrier to you. Like you got Master and you want to try TCG, but it feels like a big barrier. It's not. A lot of it's just getting over the initial hump. And the next part is getting used to the no toggles and remembering your effects on your own, but it's not that big of a deal.
And they'll just find singles for that online. So there's sort of less trading going on. And like I said, the content.
By the way, I don't like trade culture. And I would rather it didn't exist. And I'm happy it didn't exist. Because oftentimes it is just used as an excuse for people to rip off people who are not knowledgeable or are kids. That is clearly not a good thing. So I don't like.
That's a good point.
So I like that has become less of a thing. So I don't actually mind that trading is because fallen out of favor. I have no problem.
That's a pretty good point.
Seems to be skewing more towards the hyper casual nostalgic end of things. So what do you do when you are just a mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player interested in these sort of deck profile around like kind of putting this discussion out there? Because I think that you guys like I'm seeing, and I wonder if this is something that other people are seeing after card shops, because it does lead to they have like better pricing and things like that. But I think
the only Bandai game that has made an actual like difference is One Piece.
The general thing is that the mid-core Yu-Gi-Oh player feels more seen and more recognized, maybe more cared for by these Bandai games, and it could also be Magic or Lorcana or something else. I'm not saying it's only those, but
Are they really though? I don't really know.
And maybe what Yu-Gi-Oh seems to be giving them. So yeah, I want people to weigh in. How do you feel about this? Do you think this is a problem? Like what's changing here? What's caused it? I don't want this to be one of these videos where it's like, Yu-Gi-Oh is dying, right? I'm not saying that Yu-Gi-Oh is dying or it's dead, but I think that it is, there still needs to be like can't be played medicine. That's like one of the big things. There's other stuff too. I think the Yu-Gi-Oh facility league system, there's also the mixed rarity system can help with kind of enthusiasm around buying sold products. But all in all, yeah, I don't want this to be like a Yu-Gi-Oh's dying, abandon all hope, jump ship. This isn't even me, to be clear. I'm not playing any of these other new like Bandai games and stuff like that. All right, like I still just play Yu-Gi-Oh pretty much exclusively, and I still like it. I like modern Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't mind like playing it, but I just think that these are. I've heard enough testimony now that it's my face over here, and I don't even know how I made it through this video.
People can be very alarmist about it, and he's trying to say that he's not trying to be alarmist about it. So I guess I'll just kind of sit at the point that I think it's not that big of a deal. The only thing that I think is actually a problem, I don't think the content is that big of a deal, nor the support cards at 6am. But the only problem that is true is like the rarity system and the price of cards isn't very cool. It feels outdated, it's old, it's antiquated. It's not good for many players who want to spend money. Competitive players too, we don't want to spend more money. We just will if we have to. Yu-Gi-Oh will really benefit from alternate formats. People have tried and they don't pop off. So that means the demand isn't really there. So a slightly powered down format that makes pet decks more viable with it.
So I think the thing with alternate formats, he's right that people try it and like they don't really pop off. But what that really mean, or the point that I didn't make in this video, I regret that I didn't include all of these little small points in these videos. That's that's actually a problem of mine, is that like I do so many of these videos as stream of consciousness, and so I won't always like make every point like specifically and all that stuff. Like I'm kind of just like talking off the dome. And I think that for a lot of people, when they watch these, they kind of want like, I want arguments and like points and things like that. And it's like, that's not really, what the video is. But anyway, but an important point though that I did fail to mention here is that, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. ADHD. Let me rewind. Make sure.
Formats. People have tried and they don't pop off.
Yeah, okay, the alternate formats thing. So people try to make these alternate formats and they don't pop off, and so there's kind of an assumption here then that like it must be that people aren't actually all that interested in alternate formats. Where I disagree with that is that I think that alternate formats can only really work when they are like not only really work, but it helps a lot if Konami endorses an alternate format. That's I guess what I'm kind of getting at here. Basically, if it's a group of friends is like, okay, we're going to make something called, I don't know, a word format. Like this is called balanced format or something. I don't know, stable format. And like, here's what's banned and here's what's not. There's going to be a lot of infighting and disagreements around like what that actually means, what decks should be banned, what cards should be banned. Like it's always going to feel like, oh, it's just this one person or this little group of friends' opinion on things. And, why should we listen to them? What do they know? What are their accolades? They're just, in it for themselves. And then the example I made earlier with Heart of the Underdog too, even though Konami formally names Heart of the Underdog as like a format, they do not they don't give any input into like what it's supposed to, like what it has to be. They're just like, okay, your locals can decide. So my locals thinks that kaijus are fair and balanced and fine, and they allow it. Your locals doesn't. Your locals says kaijus are not fun, they're not fair, no kaijus allowed. We're not going to get into the specifics of whether or not that's a good idea or bad idea, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that like, if you think that Ash Blossom should be allowed and I don't think it should be allowed, or you think that it's fair to have access to access code talker, or just, you know, like maybe I think Gods in the Closed Moon's the problem and she should be banned, but you think it's actually Fiendsmith. All of those little nitty gritty disagreements are what cause Heart of the Underdog to have trouble really like being a standardized thing, because a lot of this stuff's got to kind of come from it's got to kind of come from the Lord's mouth, so to speak, which is to say Konami has to be the ones to say what Heart of the Underdog is and isn't, because if it's just players, then we're going to end up in this little clusterfuck we're already in of like, you know, 5 different people disagreeing on stuff. Josh has an opinion, Jesse has an opinion, Farf has an opinion, MB2 has an opinion, and there's other opinions of people who've reacted to this. And I'm glad that a lot of people seem to generally kind of agree with what I'm saying, but also like everyone, like the point that keeps coming back is just like, it's all so much of a spectrum that the only real way that you can like truly take off with like a lot of these like all kind of mid-power level formats is like, you got to have that official support. You have to have Konami where they can be the arbiter of, you know, what is and isn't allowed, because otherwise, why would the people involved not just kind of like act in their own best self-interests? Like with Konami, at least we can all just agree like, well, Konami they print the game. Like, you know, that's just kind of end of story. Anyways, okay, let's finish up this video.
So that means the demand isn't really there. So a slightly powered down format that makes pet decks more viable with their new support, that's just Heart of the Underdogs, which some locals do. And
yeah, see, Heart of the Underdog doesn't. Wait, he might mention it. Let me not.
I encourage locals to do it, to play those type of decks. The whole video boiled down to cards too expensive. I think the other arguments aren't great. The only other argument you can make is that the fact that Bandai means more competition than before. Because when there wasn't One Piece, there was Pokemon and Magic, right? Less competition, therefore you have to split up your players less. Obviously that's true, but what do you want Konami to do about that? That's not anything Konami's going to do. Konami's going to like go to Bandai's head office and like beat them all up. Like what? There's competition that happens. I mean, sometimes some players getting broken off or putting less time than Yu-Gi-Oh to play both games. That's okay. I don't think that's going to be a problem with Yu-Gi-Oh. So I kind of still think too. Yeah, Lorcana as well. Last Duel's the new one. Star Wars Unlimited. There's always new games. But One Piece is the only one that has felt like it has a proper foothold and held itself. Other games feel like they die too quickly or they don't really gain enough traction. Your locals tried Heart of the Underdog and they know everybody only wanted to play there and nobody wanted to play Advanced. Because why would I play against Snake Eye when they can play against decks? That's wrong. And I think having Heart of the Underdog is good. And having locals support that and supporting locals that do that is good. But there are more formats. Yeah, it's the thing. And people have to choose to play them though. You could argue Konami should be making more of a push for making that like advertised and accessible. But yeah, the thing is though, eventually if it becomes properly moderated and you have like Legacy or Modern and Standard is what you have in Magic, you have a Modern and Standard equivalent in Yu-Gi-Oh with higher power levels and whatnot, and different set releases, then you still get the same thing of eventually there's a best deck, and that deck becomes dominant, and the whole point is not wanting it to be hyper competitive, it's still going to be competitive. So that can't be a good reason. Master Duel should replicate TCG OCG. No, I actually don't like that. I like the Master Duel's different and unique, and I like when they do releases out of order to make formats that aren't the same. Like
I like that about Master Duel too. That's a very good point. I enjoy that Master Duel is kind of its own thing.
Cards come out already hit. I think the fact that it makes the formats not just a repeat of what we had months before is good. And then that way you do have multiple formats for Yu-Gi-Oh. You can play Master Duel or TCG or Master Duel and OCG depending where you live. And they aren't the same. And I did find solace in last year where I wasn't enjoying TCG as much that I enjoyed Master Duel a lot more. Master Duel is the place to play any deck no matter its power. Max E helps with that. Yep, it does. Much as I hate to say it. Master Duel is my favorite out of TCG. I still don't know much about OCG, but favorite out of the two of them in most ways. And it's not perfect. It has flaws, but it's better dealing with pricing. I like the rarity. You still have a cool rarity there. I wish full arts were more accessible, but it's whatever. Or I mean, alternate arts, not full arts. Full arts were a thing. And listen, there could be things they could be doing better. But I think overall, Master Duel gets more rights. And obviously, Master Duel coming out later than TCG means they can learn from the mistakes of both the TCG and the OCG, which is very helpful for them for their like defense. But it's good. I like Master Duel. Master Duel right now, obviously, the meta I don't love because of Tenpai, but that's an entirely different discussion. Yeah, I don't know. You remember watching a Jesse Cotton stream in the chat? Just absolutely roasting and shit talking his opponent's decks. Did he join a Deckless Nightmares video where the whole point is me roasting a deck? I mean, listen. Obviously, if I roast the deck as well.
Okay. Cool. So it seems like that's basically the video. What do I think? I think Jesse largely got the gist of what I was saying too. I don't disagree. So, man, having watched all of this stuff, golly, man, there's so much. Where do I land on it? I don't even know anymore. Like, I do think that Yu-Gi-Oh needs like a Smogon UU tier. Somebody said that in the chat. A lot of people have mentioned that, and I think that's valid. What I'm getting at really is that Heart of the Underdog needs to be that UU format, but it feels like Konami is a little bit apprehensive about taking a hand in that. But they have, in my opinion anyway, I think that they have to be the ones to do that because it's beyond the capabilities of just like a single person, like just kind of a person or an entity in the community to do. It's kind of got to be like Konami has to make it. And Konami's had alternate formats before. they've had, you know, if you remember a long time ago, there were things like, what was it called? Traditional format and stuff like that. I mean, it's just that, in my opinion, they kind of got to they got to be the ones to do it so that players really get into it. Oh, man. I'm not good at being a React tuber. I hate to say it. I just realized that so many of these videos, I don't think they're bad videos. They're all fine. It's just like, I guess it is a little strange. Like people kind of watching your thing and then just like they pause it and they have like these thoughts and they pause and it's a little tough. But I guess we'll just spend the next little bit like, is there any other videos that I should maybe react to that are about this specifically? Because I assume that maybe some other people have reacted to it. I'm kind of burnt of watching reaction videos. All I learned in today's stream is that I hate this. Like I don't hate the people or what they're saying. I don't think I can be a reacting person. It's just tiring. So where do we go from here? How can we capstone this whole thing? I think that where you land on the mid-core thing, it seems like it does vary a good bit based on your history with Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of makes sense. I think Josh probably just didn't quite understand what I was saying. I don't think that he said anything that wasn't true to him. I think he just maybe misunderstood some of like my points. Have I considered going on Heart of the Cast? Yeah, I'll ask them about it. I'll see if they want to talk about it. I was planning on having MBT on a video as well where we could maybe talk a little bit about like kind of delve into that late stage Yu-Gi-Oh thing that I was talking about, because I think that's something that's really, yeah. Oh God, all this has just tired me out. I don't think I'll ever do one of these again. I'm so sorry. I know, like, you know, the content creator thing is to like react to stuff. I don't see how people do this. It was a mess. Okay, well, that's gonna pretty much be it then. I'm not gonna like linger on it and waste you guys' time too much. I follow me on Twitter. I'll probably make like a thread or something about more of these topics that came up. Like some of the topics that came up with this were like the price thing, which feels like it's kind of very married to the problem, is like the price and accessibility argument. Josh, it sounds like he's kind of heard enough of it. Other people maybe, you know, seem more sympathetic to that. Something that Jesse also raised was that like One Piece is just competition for Yu-Gi-Oh! And so it's like, I have my response to that in general isn't, I don't think that like it's One Piece specifically that's like the enemy or, you know, whatever. It's really, I wanted to, it's a Yu-Gi-Oh thing. Like at the end of the day, it's a Yu-Gi-Oh discussion that involves Yu-Gi-Oh people. Where they get bled out to can be any number of places. Like they might switch to other games. They might take a break and play their games. They might do something else entirely, right? Like they just might stop playing card games altogether. I'm not really that focused on where they go when they aren't playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm focused on the fact that like they aren't playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like why they felt compelled to quit. If they're quitting just for their own like sanity and free time and social, whatever, that's fine. But if there was like a specific issue that they had with Yu-Gi-Oh! That wasn't being addressed, that's more of what I want to delve into. Because like I think that things like the card price and availability thing are solvable issues that Konami can address. And similarly, I think that not having a place to play the decks that you like, despite them getting cool cards, is also a thing that Konami can address. So someone just naturally drifting away from card games is not fine, right? But it is not a bad thing. Like it's fine. But yeah. Okay, well, cool. That's going to be it. You guys can watch this VOD up on the channel. I'll get back to making more content. I really enjoy making like theme duels and other fun stuff like that. Make sure you watch the last few videos. I would appreciate it if you did. And yeah, follow me on Twitter. You can message me, or not message me, or like just at me on Twitter if you have something that you got an opinion on, I can kind of weigh in on it there. Might be easier. Okay, cool. That's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Pass turn.